Walking through the swamp in the middle of the night after being dropped off in a helicopter is so cool.
That's what you think the Army is going to be.
Yeah. We have 12 guys on the team. We're expecting 6 of us to be dead.
In very small ways, you know, wokeism is starting to finally be seen for what it really is, which is a disease.
I'm probably in trouble for saying this. I think that wokeism is a lack of confidence.
Oh, yeah, we should defund the police. What? I think I'm the only guy to say fuck in the New York Stock Exchange as I'm giving my public speech.
That's a scary question. Do you think we'll ever see foreign troops on U.S. soil?
That Second Amendment prevents a lot of that shit from happening, boys.
God bless.
Yeah.
Between the Israel and Palestine and the Hamas thing, where do you think this goes? All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Heavy Checklist podcast, where we sit down and we just kind of start talking and we just kind of start saying things that some of us didn't even know. And it's a hell of a time.
Most of the time what comes out of your mouth you don't know is going to come out.
No.
It's like watching Michael Scott.
From The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
So, as you guys know, we just barely rebooted the podcast. We were going strong a few years ago, took a break, built a new podcast studio, kind of got all of our ducks in a row, and then we decided that we wanted to hit it full speed ahead again. And in doing that, we wanted to make sure we had some kick-ass guests. In fact, our guest tonight is our first official guest of the reboot.
And our most kick-ass guest.
Oh. He's a pretty good one. He's a pretty good one. In fact, I just found out, before I tell you who he is, those of you who are watching on YouTube, you already see if you recognize him, but I just found out today that our guest was just on Rogan a couple of days ago.
Oh.
The podcast that Rogan uploaded yesterday, and this guest has been on Rogan a few times.
Yeah.
You're close friends with him, so you're not new to the world of podcasting. No. And we're very, very happy to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Evan Hafer.
Dude.
Do the clapping. Yeah. No, not the laughing.
There we go. There we go.
There we go.
So Evan Hafer is the founder of Black Rifle Coffee, correct?
It is. All right.
And Evan is a former Green Beret. Mm-hmm. Spent a lot of time in the U.S. Army. Spent some time in the CIA.
Yep.
And now you are running a very big coffee business.
Yeah. It's you summarized 20 years relatively well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the founder, still the CEO until January 1st. Then I roll off. I'm the chairman, and then
is that because of the IPO?
No, it's because I think you reach a point at any point in business. I wanted to roll off a couple years ago. My co-CEO, I was preparing him to take over. I hired him 6 years ago now, but he got sick, so we had to hire somebody else and start pulling them in and essentially training and building a succession from within. So, you know, I'm stoked. I go to the chairman and I'm taking a founder role in the company, so I can just work on.
That's kind of the best role you can get.
It is.
You don't got to deal with it day to day.
No. So I'm excited. I'm like, I get a ton of time back. I can focus on creative, which is really where my strong suit is.
Right.
You know, process.
How old are you?
47.
47. That's a lot to do in 47 years.
He's kind of like got a lot of similarities to Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah.
Rob Dyrdek.
Much better looking.
Way
I'd say better looking. Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah. And probably more violent. He's got some training.
Much more violent.
But you've got, you know, when you hear Evan Hafer, and if you don't know you get kind of a mixed bag of things you can hear about you.
Oh yeah,
viral videos.
Yeah, I've known you via our circle of friends for a long time. So what we're doing tonight is a long time coming. We've been talking about doing stuff with Black Rifle for so long, but as you guys IPO'd and we're super busy, there's just always kind of this world where it doesn't work, but we just kind of forced it to happen, especially after spending some time together last week in Moab with you and some of the coolest dudes in the world.
By far, they are way cooler than I am. That, you know, they've got Andy Stump just in general. I mean, he's a former SEAL Team 6 guy who was shot several years ago. He was wounded. He came back. He became a BUDS instructor.
He got shot in the hip?
Yeah.
Right? I think he was telling us the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he just decided he was going to get out, and he became a private pilot. So then he was CrossFit's private pilot for several years. And then he...
Oh, I didn't know he was a pilot.
Oh, yeah. He's a commercial pilot. He's a commercial rated pilot. And he has a couple world records. He's a very accomplished skydiver. He's got a really famous podcast. Like the guy's just like everything he does is exceptional, and he makes it look really easy. Yeah. And he also puts a level of jackassery in it that makes it palatable for me.
That's why we like him.
Yeah. I can't talk to people that are, I mean, I can hold a conversation with somebody that's really serious for a very finite amount of time before it's like, it turns into just really dumb shit.
Yeah.
Like just really dumb stuff.
The one thing about Dave I know is that if they can't hold his attention, he just will stop talking altogether.
Oh, cool.
So multiple times.
And I'll like, before I even know what's happening, I'll have left the conversation and be off doing something else.
Hold on, let me tell you how bad it is. He will look you in your eyes and not respond. He'll just,
looking right through you.
Yeah.
So that's the same type of guy we're talking about, though. The type of people. So I hate small talk.
Yeah.
Hates it.
Yeah, I fucking hate it too.
Small talk. But I also hate boring talk. Just business talk. I hate talking about trucks most of the time because I've been talking about them for 10 years now.
Right.
I love trucks. I love building them. But when it gets to the point where when you become high profile, and I'm sure you've run into this, people formulate this idea of who you are, right? They think you're a certain way because they heard you on this show, that show, they followed you, and then they meet you in person, and so they have this little package of who they think you are, and they kind of stay in that package, meaning they don't know what else to talk about.
Right.
And it kind of drives me crazy, which is why I love our fans. I love our supporters. But when I'm in the grocery store at 10 o'clock at night trying to get something for the family and rush home.
How much would it be to come and swap my truck?
Yeah, and they want to show me a picture of a F-150. They want to come and swap. It's just like, not the time,
Time out. When are you in the grocery store at 10 o'clock at night? And
surprisingly a lot, actually.
Why?
Because I get random cravings. I'm a big cup of noodles guy.
Oh.
Yeah, I like, but not just a regular cup of noodles. I like the bougie ones.
Yeah,
I'll get the ones that are like as big as, they're like 3 foot.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So I'm big on that. And when it hits me, I got to go. So,
but you don't want to stock up. You want to, like, you fill it, you go buy one, and then you sit in the truck and eat it.
I stock up, but I have a couple of mini-me's who have the same eating habits as me. Yeah, so Mac and Bo just love the spicy noodles as well. So with that said, Evan, you're a pretty accomplished guy. You're a guy that you've done a lot. You've lived a lot of lives.
I've tried. I've really tried. And to kind of summarize it, and I was talking a little bit about it with Joe. Is like, at 5'7" and soaking wet on my best day, I'm 160 pounds. Maybe slightly above average IQ. I'm running everything in the red. I'm trying to get everything I can out of this whole thing. And I know that dealing with my mortality for an extended period of time, every day, every minute, every second, I was like, transitioning out of government service, it was like, we got to wring this sponge on this thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't really pontificate about motivation, or I never want to be a motivational speaker. I don't think that I have the type of skills where it is. It's just, I'm a very action oriented person. And I feel like if I'm not fucking busy, if I'm not just grinding myself into moon dust, I'm not getting everything out of the day.
Yep.
And I just kind of, I don't want to say it's like Forrest Gump. That's probably not the most accurate way to describe it. But
a little autistic.
Yeah, like I go really deep into things, and I fell into this. I didn't fall into it. I lucked into this. A couple doors down from me, I was like, I had my first girlfriend back in the day in Idaho. I grew up in Lewiston, Idaho, which is on the confluence of 2 rivers. Fucking amazing place. And my girlfriend at the time in junior high school, I was walking into their house and I had a book in my back pocket and it said Navy SEALs across the top. And he's like, "Hey, you, why don't you come over here?" I was like, "Oh."
Is the girlfriend's dad?
Yeah. I was like, "What did I do now?" "I promise, sir, like, you've never seen anything because I've been very good in public in front of you." And then he pulled it out. He's like, "So what's this all about?" I was like, "Oh, these guys are badass." And he's like, "Why don't you come in my den here?" And I was like, "Dude, this guy's gonna fucking thump me." And he was a former Green Beret. He pulled a book off the shelf, which was a history of the Green Berets, and he was like, "Swap me out with this, read this one, tell me what you think." And from that point forward, I was like, I want to go be a Green Beret. And
that was it. How old were you?
I was 16 at the time.
Same size.
I maybe even a little bit.
Stop throwing at 12?
9, maybe. I don't know. Like, yeah, I was same size basically, and I was like, hey, okay, I can run, I can shoot, I can get some stuff done. But I was kind of just, a a ship without a rudder, I guess. I was a standard teenage kid. I got shitty grades. I went to college, but I just wanted to jump out of airplanes and do Green Beret stuff. Like, all I wanted to be was like a commando. That's it. I was like, I'd go to college. And I was like, fuck, man, I want to learn how to shoot people in the face. Like that's what I want to do. And so finally I got the opportunity. I went to selection, and then the wars kicked off, and then I was sucked into the Global War on Terror, multiple different theaters. And then I did the invasion of Iraq with CIA, and then I applied to the CIA. I went in there around 2005, and I spent basically the next 10 years there.
What did you do for the CIA?
I did a combination of things. No, I did something. I was on what's called global response staff for a few years, and I went over to a different department, and then my last couple years there, I ran a selection and training program for former commandos that wanted to come out and work for us. So I kind of developed the training criteria and then the selection. But at the same time, back in '97, not to like gloss over everybody's eyes, I was in Seattle, and I was once again girl. I was trying to meet this chick in my anthropology class, and she was a barista, so I'd frequent this place and be buying coffees, trying to get to know her. And I was like, this is awesome. So I fell in love with coffee. I started roasting it in between deployments after that. And I always thought that the wars were going to last this long, and then I'm just going to get out and start a coffee shop. And my idea back in the day was always to have this bougie, cool gun store with like race guns and a range and a coffee shop. That's the term, Black Rifle Coffee. And I was roasting coffee on the back tailgate of a government truck on the range, teaching guys how to shoot carbines. And I used to just stamp these brown bags, and I'd ship this stuff out overseas to my buddies. So when I transitioned out, the Black Rifle was born. And by the way, my wife, I met her in a coffee shop. She had a coffee shop in Denver. And she was like, I know how to pull shots. I know how to roast coffee. Let's just put these two things together. So the even shorter version.
Who was in the bikini, you or her?
Both of us.
Okay.
Depending on the scenario.
Yeah.
Depending on the scenario, both of us were there.
I lived in Seattle. I know all about those little.
The bikini baristas, dude.
Bikini baristas.
Yeah. Did you lived in Seattle?
I did. I lived in downtown Seattle.
Where? Like downtown?
Downtown. I lived in Bellevue, and then I was a missionary there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I was in downtown Seattle the majority of it.
Okay.
And we were always like, this is insane. There's just these little coffee shops everywhere with hot girls in swimsuits.
Yeah.
And people are just lined up.
Really?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And but
Seattle's a real shitty place. It's on my do not go to list.
Hold on. Seattle is beautiful.
Yeah.
the people suck.
You ever tried driving a 24-foot trailer around?
Bro, I tried driving
Dude, the streets there
the semi-trailer.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
When I came back here after my mission, I remember just looking at how big the streets were. It's like I had forgotten because the streets are tiny there. So talking about pulling a trailer, no. I love Seattle. I do not like the people. Hopefully we don't have a lot of listeners in Seattle. I don't like the people, but I love
all the people. We love
anybody outside of the actual city.
Got good and bad people.
Yeah.
The problem is the mentality of Seattle. It's become this weird mob mentality.
Where the
liberal mindset
mob
is, and I hate to say the word liberal because it's
communism. They have a communist mayor.
Yep.
I know we said no politics, but it's
we're gonna get into.
No, I was joking.
Oh, you were.
That. We fucking talk about whatever we want.
Like it's like a cancer that just infected everybody's minds, and then it's just when I was there, dude. I lived in Ballard, so when I first moved out there, and I used to go to these bars down in Ballard. You could still get in a fight. You could still get in a fight with a guy that worked on a boat. Like he was a fisherman. He was wearing Carhartts. Like if you ran your mouth, you get your bell rung. You weren't like I would go out and I was like I'd wear Carhartts and Levi's. Like I was just a Northern Idaho kid, and like it wasn't skinny jeans and top knots and guys that looked like they work on bicycles in the 1800s. It wasn't that. It was real working class people out in that area of the town.
Were you living there?
Oh yeah. I was stationed in Fort Lewis, and I was going back and forth to Seattle, and I loved the city until it made this weird. It flipped to just full socialist, and then I was like, I can't do this.
The first time I took her back there 3 years ago, or maybe it was 4 years during COVID. That's my wife.
Oh yeah,
by the way. And she was like, "Wait, hold on. There's a whole place in the middle of the city that they've shut down police, and they built their own gang and then put a whole fence around it. No joke, dude. When you went down to downtown Seattle, they kicked
have a name.
Yeah,
have a name.
The Chop.
No, they were called.
It's called the Chaz, the Chop.
Yeah. And dude, they literally ran their shit. They ran the cops out. I was like, hold on, time out. They have no guns, and you ran the cops out. How does that work? And
it was an experiment.
But that's
the
literally.
Let them.
But but to be fair, like that's what Seattle is or was. So
right.
The reason why I won't go back is because I have 7 outstanding parking tickets.
That's about right.
I parked my truck and trailer sideways in a parking lot, and I got 7 of them.
And the craziest thing
I'm not coming back,
bro. You'll probably get in more trouble for those parking tickets than somebody in Seattle who walks into a grocery store and walks out with $1,000.
And that's why I can't go back.
Yep,
guaranteed.
Never again.
It's a crazy place, beautiful but crazy.
Yeah, in Fremont they have a statue of Lenin.
Yeah,
they have a statue of Lenin in Fremont, which is part of Seattle, right before a bridge. And it was always this weird feeling because you're like ultra American, you know, very, very conservative, and then you're living amongst a bunch of people that built a statue of Lenin.
And they're the same
like,
people who are trying to get us to tear down statues of our founding fathers.
Yeah.
They're the it's such a weird mindset. And I mean, it's easy at first glance to just hate it and just, you know, think that everybody's so messed up. And there is a lot of messed up people, but I'm so curious about what they really believe.
Yeah.
Do they really believe this bleeding heart mentality, or are they just kind of, that's where they are and that's who they are for the time being?
I think it's the latter.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I've never met anybody that was willing to die on that belief in that sector of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the logic is not sound, which is weird because most of these people tend to be, well, not most of them, but some of them are intellectual people. You know, they're people that well educated, and man, they just get tricked.
Again, I'm not saying they're bad. I just, if I were to, because I'm not right or left, I feel like I'm probably a good unbiased, but if I meet people from the right, they're willing to die for whatever the fuck they're telling you they're in. Now on the left, purple hair and craziness, they're not willing to die for it. And as soon as they're threatened, usually that is uprooted and it's changed. That's why I say, like, there isn't, like, when you say, what do they really believe? I don't even know if there is a real hardcore belief, because you're willing to die for what you really believe, but they're not. It's like, this is where I'm at right now.
So we said no politics. 10 minutes in, we're
already there.
We're deep into the blue hair. So that's, Evan, help me establish a timeline real quick.
Sure, yeah.
You went straight into basic training for...
Yeah, I was in the Guard and in the college at the same time. Then I went on active duty in 1999, and then once I came out, 2005 is when I went into the CIA, and then I went back into the Guard, which was 19th Special Forces Group here in Utah. That's how I landed in Utah. I was teaching courses here for them, so I was in what's called Group Training Detachment in 19th Special Forces Group. I was kind of short timing, right? I was done, but I'd done 7 years of deployments, like
you were over there for 7 years.
on the ground, boots on the ground, give or take,
including Army,
CIA, yeah, and I'd gone several different places. So Southeast Asia, I'd worked in Africa, anywhere from the Philippines to South Africa, which was Botswana and the Okavango Delta, to Senegal, and then kind of all over the Middle East.
Were you married with kids during that time?
No, no, I was gone. I spent most of my adult life out of the country.
So you said 2005 you joined CIA.
Yeah,
so that's when you left me in the Green Beret. Or
I still stayed in the reserves basically the entire time. Or it's called I call the reserves because people don't understand that the National Guard is somewhat like the reserves. So it's a statement that kind of everybody understands, versus like trying to tell exactly the unit, because people just gloss over. They're like, what the fuck?
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I kind of flip back and forth. I'd do a deployment. I'd go probably 4 or 5 deployments a year, and then I'd come back and do a deployment with 19th Group. And so I was just gone. Gone. Yeah. Which is great. I mean, I truly enjoyed being gone.
Yeah.
And at the time, you know, there's lots of different reasons why I was doing it. Right? There's like lots of different reasons. All of them were about the mission, about pursuing terrorism. There was a lot of different, very meaningful mission, bigger than me. things that I had to accomplish that I felt that I needed to be part of that.
Did 9/11
then I got tired. You? Yeah, I was in a training course down in Louisiana, down a swamp, and I was actually a prisoner of war in this training scenario. So I was like, I built some flip-flops out of 550 cord with parachute cord and cardboard, and I was just naked in this cage, basically on this barge in the middle of the swamp. And they came out, and they're like, planes hit the towers, and we're like, was this part of the scenario or what? And we're still in scenario. We're deep, which is, you guys are aviation guys, so it's such a cool training exercise. It's one of my first things that I did that I thought was like super cool. We took these helicopters out over the ocean and then back up into the Pearl River, which is a tributary to the Mississippi. And then we did what's called a helocast. So we dropped the 47's ramp basically down into the river, which was moving 10 knots at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then you push Zodiacs off the back of a boat, and you push the boats off, and you go out behind them. So you jump into the river.
This is all out of the back of a Chinook.
It's a Chinook. And then you swim to the boat, you fire it up, and you start going up the river to your recon point. But I hadn't done this before. So you got your bow line, and I'm the junior guy, basically. So I'm the young guy. So I'm the bow line guy. I've never done any of this shit before. So they're like, you're going out with the boat. I'm like, great, I'm going out with the boat. So I go out with the boat. I get back in the boat. My job's to start the engine and start picking everybody up. Right, so get your NVGs out and pick everybody up. And I'm cranking on the boat, and we're floating down at 10 knots, so it's moving.
Oh,
I'm
it's
like,
a pole start.
Wah, just trying to get this thing started, and it starts, and it goes, and then stops. Well, I don't know why, because this is my first time on a boat team. I don't know. Oh, you got to turn the fuel on, dummy. That's what you got to do. So it just had enough in the lines to get it going. And finally, I kind of got everything sorted out and started picking guys up, and we went up and set in basically a recon position. But walking through the swamp in the middle of the night after being dropped off in a helicopter is so cool. It is like the thing that I think every guy that wants to be a Green Beret is like, holy shit,
that's what you think the Army is going to be.
Yeah. When you get sold on it, you're like, oh yeah, I'm jumping out of a Chinook into a boat.
Recruiters are showing you that picture. That video.
Of him.
Yeah, and then you're
pole starting something,
and then you're doing it, and you're like, wait, this is a lot of work, and this is really sketchy because you're out in the river, and I'm from northern Idaho, so you see little glowing points of light on the banks, and they're like 6 inches or 8 inches apart. And I'm like, what are those? Those are gators.
Jeez.
And they're all over. I'm like, are you serious? What are we doing here? Why are we in this water then? Why are we swimming in this water at night? This is crazy. And as you're walking through these dry areas and then down into these troughs, these are game trails that you're walking on. And they're also game trails that go down into the water and up the other side. So you wouldn't go in 2 at a time, because if your guy gets snatched up, you're like, okay, I got to be ready to like pull this guy by the rucksack out of here.
Did that ever happen?
No, it never happened. But it was still fun. Yeah. It was a blast. Like, it was like one of my first things.
So you get the call. Was 9/11 your first deployment?
No, it was. I went to the Philippines just about a year later. I went to the Philippines. There was a small group of communist insurgents operating in the northern Philippines islands. And so we went out and trained Filipinos to try to pursue those guys. There was also a smaller radical Islamic faction that was called Abu Sayyaf. They weren't really gaining a lot of inertia at that time, so we were working on what we were doing in the north. And then my first deployment was the invasion of Iraq. So I was one of the first vehicles to cross the berm from Kuwait into Iraq in March 2003.
Wow.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, what is that like, dude? I mean, so at that time, everybody's still thinking we're going to get in and get out. We're going to get Saddam. This is going to be a few weeks, couple month mission.
You're planning on snatching him that day you cross the line.
I mean, you knew it was a long drive, right?
Yeah.
Because you're looking at the map, and at that point, GPS, it's gotten so much better. So we had a lot of maps, and we just basically had a blank screen with a line on how we could get to where we needed to go. It wasn't very much more sophisticated than that.
Were you taking roads, or were you taking
Both. Okay. So we would at times be on a road, but we started basically in wide open, flat desert, and we led the 101st Airborne Division, and we had split team operations. So one side of the team where they leap north in CH-47s, shit hooks, Chinooks, and then we had Humvees, and then we all linked up just south of a town called Karbala, but we were on the push to Baghdad all the way north, but we were stopped a couple different times to deal with different levels of military, organized military, Iraqi military, and then we got into Baghdad. I guess it's probably a week or two later. I can't remember exactly the timelines, but we had big sandstorm during that time. So
that was like your first time in a sandstorm.
Yeah, it was the first time we'd been in Kuwait prepping to go, but it was the first time you had just complete brown out, like just everything's brown. You can see maybe 5 feet in front of you. So you're driving 5 miles an hour, but that sand, it gets in everything. You can't see anything. You can't go anywhere. So we all had to stop. We took a pregnant pause there before we did a final push into Baghdad. And then once we get into Baghdad, we turned around and went into a town called An-Najaf, and we were there for a while before we went back out through Kuwait.
What was your thoughts going in for the first time, knowing you're the first troops, knowing you're the first ones across the lines? Like, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
Well, the first phase in the build-up, there was a bunch of different course of actions that they went through, and we were planning on doing a mass airborne operation into Baghdad. That was the original thing that was briefed to us, where we were going to fly over. They're going to knock out as much air defense as they could, and then we're going to fly over and basically jump with the entire Ranger Regiment into Baghdad. Baghdad, it was Saddam International Airport at the time, which we converted to Baghdad International Airport. But we estimated the casualties were going to be 50% or higher on that. So
which side? US
the
side?
invasion.
Okay.
Yeah,
no,
we thought because there wasn't a place in that airport that a 60mm mortar couldn't reach, that we wouldn't be able to completely eliminate from the equation. So we felt that there was going to be a ton of indirect. Then it kicked back into this other plan where we were coming in from the south, and your expectation is we have 12 guys on the team. We're expecting 6 of us to be dead. So you have some really, really heavy thoughts where you're like, hopefully I'm not.
US. So it is the U.S. You're saying you're...
Yeah. You're expecting that we're going to have 50% casualties on the first wave.
Jeez. So you're going in like we're either me or one of my guys here.
100%. So you have to deal with the mortality question like in a very significant way. But once you cross that hurdle psychologically and you say, okay, well, I'm already dead. So if you just commit yourself to being essentially dead already, everything gets a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But then we didn't hit as much resistance even close to what they estimated. So you kept waiting for it.
Yeah.
Like, when is the big foot, when is the shoe going to fall, so to speak?
Did that keep you guys on your toes the majority of the time?
Yeah. You were always, every day you were expecting like this thing's going to really kick off. And then you're stopping and you're dealing with essentially nuance on the way up, because the big military machine, it's an incredible, it's to be part of that. An invasion.
I was going to ask you that.
Crazy.
That's got to be an insane feeling, because if you're the tip of the spear, behind you've got a lot of firepower.
And it's wild. When you see it, and I don't know how heavy you want to make it, but when you see it, it feels like godlike power.
Yeah.
You don't understand how powerful the entire military force really is until you see it being utilized at a percentage, and it's not even 100%.
Yeah, you're not 100%. It's only a little,
but it is wild because it's so. It's dark.
Yeah.
But then the sky is completely light, like it's daylight, and everything is going off.
Even at
everything.
Night.
Yeah.
Even at night, it's just daylight.
So you're firing from one side and things are coming in from the other side depending on what's happening, and everything is bright and it's fucking loud and it is so big it's something I can't really describe because it's a feeling. It's like experiencing the Grand Canyon for the first time with explosives. That's how big it is. It's so big you have no comprehension how big it is.
My wife and I were watching Lone Survivor last night, and she was asking me the question like, why did they just get dropped off and like you know, yada yada yada. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Normally, if they run into a situation, they call for air support. And, you know, at the end of the movie, you see that. And I'm like, do you understand when you're fighting with like 15 people against 15 people, when you call in an Apache or a Chinook or a Blackhawk, like it feels exactly what you're talking about. And you see that in the movie, too. You're like, holy shit, okay, they're here. And then they just fucking rain down. Yeah. And that's the question I have.
But that's like, just one. That's one kind of QRF. They've got ground QRF too, right? Where they're coming in and yeah, so
which I think they did at the end of the movie. They have the ground QRF come in to get him, but it's insane.
Before we get into the details of that, I have a couple questions that I want to ask before I forget. What's the best or your favorite place you've ever been besides home?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I have to recognize home. I think Northern Idaho is
unreal.
It's the most beautiful place on earth. Yeah. And I've seen more than my fair share of the planet. It's just so incredible. So, I mean, I love the United States. I really, and it's not me saying that. It's like, dude, I love this place. Like everything about it it's just incredible. I mean, if you go down to you know, Eastern Texas and you look at some of the stuff down there, you go all the way north to Idaho, like this place is amazing. But outside of that, if I were really kind of searching everything, I've been to a lot of really bad places.
That was just my next question.
I've been to a lot of really bad places, but the Okavango Delta in northern Botswana is amazing. It's incredible. It's green, it's lush, it's beautiful, it's full of animals. You know, you've got zebras and giraffes and rhinos, and you've got these huge animals that don't exist anywhere else, and they're magnificent. They're so incredible. You're looking at them going, I can't believe this. It's like walking around a place with dinosaurs, basically. Yeah. And it's so different than anywhere else. I would probably say northern Botswana, the Okavango Delta is probably the most.
Do you live in Utah
place.
now?
Yeah, I live here at Salt Lake.
So if all these cool places in Lewiston, like, you know, northern Idaho saying it's the best, what keeps you here?
I mean, I love this place. Like, I mean, there's so many different things I like about Utah because of the convenience to the mountains. Like, they've got great schools, they've got a great community. I mean, you guys live here. You know how incredible this place is because there's one, it's a red state. Two, they have incredible family values. They've got good schools. They don't broker in woke horse shit, which is a huge and important thing to me. I just can't do it. Like I don't want my kids to be like exposed to it in like any way. So I think the values of Utah and the terrain, combining those two with the third aspect is it's so easy to get in and out of here. That it doesn't get much better. It's, you know, northern Idaho is out there.
Yeah.
Like you got to take a connection anywhere you go. And, you know, I can hunt elk here. I can go fly fishing and hunt elk. I can go skiing with the kids, and they can be raised in a great community with family values. My neighbors are some of my best friends. Like, they are some of my best friends, and they're LDS and I'm not, and they know it. We're playing ping pong in my garage till midnight, and I'm hanging out with everybody. They've fully integrated me into the neighborhood. You know, thankfully, they're like, this guy's not too much of a dickhead. So I love the community and I love the people. Yeah. Like, that's what I love about this place. More than anything, it's the people.
Yeah. It's good people. A lot of ambition here.
Yeah.
And, you know, they call it the crossroads of the West. Like you were saying, it's so easy to get in and out of here.
Yeah,
and every time you turn around, there's a new direct flight leaving from here to somewhere. Right. I saw today that Hawaiian Airlines is starting to fly in here.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. So it's just nonstop. Yeah. But we are limited on how much we can grow because we're this tiny sliver of land wedged between the Great Salt Lake and the mountains. Right. So real estate's at a premium, obviously. But yeah, this is home and we love it too. Yeah. The other question I had was shittiest place, most apocalyptic place you've ever been.
Mosul, 2009.
Where's that?
Where? Northern Iraq. It was the most dangerous city in the most dangerous war environment in modern history. And it looked like what I would imagine Dresden might have back in World War II. It was post-apocalyptic, bombed out buildings, you know, militias.
Is it still like that now?
I don't know what the state of Mosul is right now today. I know that we've definitely I shouldn't say that, the Iraqis in connection with us, we pushed out most of the radical factions that were connected to ISIS. But that place was not even close to stable. It was the most desperate place I've ever seen.
How long were you there?
I was there for about 2 years, so off and on, in and out for just a year and a half, give or take. Like, 3-4 months on, 45 days off, 3-4 months on, and just go in and out. And it's the birthplace of civilization. I mean, the Nineveh, which is, you guys were familiar with Nineveh, I would imagine, because it's very biblically specific. That's there in Mosul.
Oh, okay.
And so Saladin, the warlord, had raised his tribe to go overthrow Jerusalem at one point, all the way through there. Samarra, which is right there, it's historically very relevant. In 2 years' time, I'd gone from like Nineveh to Jerusalem to Rome, and I'd gone from like Bethlehem for midnight mass. I went to the Vatican for midnight mass. And I went to all these places, and I just so happened to be there on that date. So I was like, let's go. Yeah. Went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. I was lucky enough to be there. Bethlehem there, Rome at the Vatican. I'm not Catholic, but participating in that event is pretty fucking wild.
Does it feel different over there? They refer to it as the Holy Land, and obviously it's got its fair share of problems. Is there a different feeling there? Meaning, I don't know if you can explain, what a spiritual feeling would be in being, but you've been to holy places, you've been to places that are reverent. Does it feel that way still, or does it feel just too chaotic now with all the?
No, you can feel the gravity of civilization, is what I call it.
That's cool. Okay,
like that's what you can feel. It is so old and so significant. It's so emotionally relevant, and this is coming from a guy that's not Catholic. So for me to have gone to some of those places, Bethlehem, and gone to the, literally the church and Church of Holy Sepulchre, and then looked where they estimate, when I say they estimate, Christ was crucified. There's no way you can't be completely overwhelmed with the energy that's there. It's just, it is. And and then you go to Rome, and it's huge.
Yeah.
Everything is huge. Everything is beautiful. Everything is like historically relevant. So it's a different type of gravity. It's like you can feel the emotional significance in both places, but gosh, you can feel it. It is wild.
Yeah,
it feels like you're being like sucked into a spiritual force field or something.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can understand why people are so passionate about their land and stuff. You ever heard of the unmovable ladder? It's in in Jerusalem, and it's in the main synagogue there. I can't remember what the name of it is, but essentially it's a perfect example of what's happening over there. Back in the 1700s, God, I gotta remember the name of it's the main spot in Jerusalem, the main synagogue. But anyways, back when that's kind of the 1700s is when all the religions kind of started to fraction, and kind of what's what I'm looking for, fraction. They started to they started to split and started you get the Jews and the Christians and the Arabs, and so when that happened, that was right during the time, I think there was 5 different religions and groups that all kind of claimed that as their holy land. That was their spot. But it's only one place, trying to be shared by 5 very passionate groups. And so when that happened, when they decided to split it into 5 different, to share it between 5 different groups, they made a rule saying that nothing can be changed or done in that synagogue and in the Holy Land there without the approval of every single, with all 5. And during that time, there was a construction worker working on a ladder up on a window, and it happened right then. And so he finished his work, got down, left the ladder, and nobody's been able to move the ladder ever since, because it takes all 5 groups to agree that the ladder can be moved. So it's like this symbolic thing that wasn't. They didn't set it up to be that way. It wasn't set up to be like some symbolic thing, but it's a huge thing. So you go Google it. It's a picture of a little wooden ladder just leaned up against a building, and it's been there since the 1700s, and nobody can touch it. Nobody can move it because nobody will agree on it. So it just shows you just how chaotic it is over there. They can't even agree on moving old ladder out of a holy building. And so I can only imagine, I've never been there, but I can only imagine the, the pressure that you guys were under, because you guys are coming in as this foreign force.
Oh yeah.
And you're not welcome, and you're just ready to, kick ass and take names. But then that didn't happen the way that everybody thought it would.
No.
You kicked a lot of ass, but it's like you just had to kind of, it's like you wanted this big, like you were saying, you were waiting for it to kick off.
Yeah.
And it never really quite kicked off. It just kind of kept going, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it went through different phases. So you had the conventional military defeat, which was the Iraqi army and the Fedayeen. So you defeated those guys. And then what happened was there was a lull, which I like to call things pregnant pauses. And so you're sitting there in a team room for us, and we're watching CNN, and they're talking about looters. And we're like, dude, this is not looting. This is going to go kinetic, and it's going to go kinetic real fast. These guys are building and preparing to push back in an unconventional war.
Talking about the radicals.
Yeah. But they, that's the disconnect between policymakers and the people on the ground. There's a big disconnect, and there's a big disconnect between the people running the war, which would be generals, and the guys fighting the war, the guys on the ground.
Yeah.
Guys like me, we were feeling it. We could see it changing. We could, you could collect your intel. You could talk to multiple people. You could develop your sources. You could do all these things. And you're like, what they're saying on TV is not what's happening here. This is really going to get crazy.
Right.
There's this cat, Muqtada al-Sadr, which was a cleric that we ended up fighting later, like 2 years later. We actually had this meeting with him early on, and we were like, this guy's a bad dude. We need to go kill him. And the State Department
kind of goes?
Oh yeah.
You just kind of go, this guy's a bad dude. We need to kill him.
Kind of, yeah. You ask for permission, and they're like, "Yeah, sounds good." Or they, tell you to go kill. It's kind of like, but works both ways.
Yeah.
Like, I think this guy's a bad guy. Like,
you just make the decision and you go.
Yeah, and the State Department said, "No, you can't do that. Like, we're just not going to let you do that." So we're like, "But this guy's going to be really bad," and he turned out to be one of the worst guys. He was backed by the Iranians. He was a Shia, very prominent cleric, and. About 2 years later, it took a multi-unit conventional force to go and get this guy and completely eradicate him out of Sadr, which, Muqtada al-Sadr, Sadr City. But then they ended up fighting street to street to get this guy out. So that's just a perfect example of, we knew from day one, when he had like 40 guys, when we could have just gone and kind of cleaned him up and moved on with our life. The State Department policymakers had this idea that we were still going to be able to work with them. And it's like, these guys were built, they dealt with theory. They didn't deal with reality. It's like sometimes disconnect between the contractor and the architect kind of a thing.
Is that disconnect still happen now?
It's less,
or have
because
we gotten better at it?
We've gotten better because you've had those guys grow up like me. All my friends now, I just went out to one of my buddies' funerals, and I met with about 100 different guys that I served with over the course of several years. And, one of my buddies is a general now. So it's like, we went to selection and we went to everything together. He's a general. So it's like, he's in charge. Well, he was carrying a rifle just like me. So he knows kind of tactical ground truth, and it is getting better. Or I should say it got better. And then now all those guys are retiring and getting out. So now we're going to go through the same phase.
The same shit.
Yeah.
Again.
Same shit.
So you guys had an opportunity. This is one thing that would really frustrate me about being, a soldier, serving the country, is you have an opportunity to solve the problem. It's right in front of you. Everything makes sense. Logic's there. All your ducks in a row. You can't get the green light.
No.
And, the ROEs are just like, unless you've got somebody shooting directly at you. And even then, it's just insane what they put our troops through, as far as, dude, you just get these guys all ready to go in and solve this problem, and then you tie their hands.
Yeah.
How I actually wondered this yesterday when we were watching that the Lone Survivor, because their first argument is ROE.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what are rules of engagement for these three guys that just showed up? They're going to blow us up.
Right.
And I guess for those who are listening, ROE means rules of engagement.
Yeah.
How often are you down there and you're like, if we listen and do ROE, we're going to be dead, and you throwing it or disregarding it?
ROE, for the most part, it's functioning and it's in place, and you kind of know the rules of the road. So you just kind of function based off those guidelines. But there's multiple different gray areas. Just like a lot of things, there's gray. Yeah. And so it's how many reps do you have seeing the problem that allow you to solve it in the gray area without committing a war crime or going to jail.
That's the difference between being court-martialed and not, right?
It's the difference between guys getting in a lot of trouble and ending their careers, or ending up in jail, or staying in the fight. A good example is several years ago, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a guy, he's a bad dude, and he was molesting kids, and one of the officers went out and literally, they beat the shit out of him.
He was in the military?
Yeah, and then he got rung up on charges.
The officer did?
Yeah, the guy that did it, that beat up the Afghani. And that's a good example as to, like, what's right, but he wasn't shooting at you. Why did you take action, right? So it's you and I both. What happened to him? He ended up coming back. I think he was court-martialed, and I forget exactly like the entire premise of or what happened to him in his professional career. But everybody was like, "Yeah, we know these guys are bad. Like they're really bad. They just like there's some guys that are they're evil, and we know they are.
Yeah.
And when you restrict people from doing what's right, what's aligned with our ethics and morals and what we think is culturally correct, and then what's legal." A lot of times those things contradict they come in direct collision with one another, and it's complex. I mean, humans are very complex.
Yeah.
So
humans are complex by themselves, and then you insert religion.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they've got motivation to do whatever their crazy belief is, or whether it's, it may not be crazy to them, but they've got this just divine motivation to push them to do these crazy things that they're doing. And that's I wanted to ask you a little bit about, we haven't talked much, like he was saying when we started, about, current events and politics and stuff on the show. Not that we're against it, but I think it's a good opportunity for me to pick your brain on what's currently happening.
Oh, man.
Is it scary?
Yeah.
Hold on, before you answer that, how much intel do you have to that answer?
Not a lot, because, I roast coffee now, so it's
But you have a lot of friends.
I do, yeah. I've got friends. I think there's two problems, right? It's like people see the problem at home where you've got, I think you've got failed ideologies, which are, socialism, that becomes an issue here at home.
Yeah.
And they're struggling to figure out, where's their purpose, where's their meaning, how do we maintain our constitutional freedoms, and then also not broker in socialism and or communism, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys, to include myself, that think that failed ideologies such as that need to be flushed down the international toilet. So, yeah, that's just pure and simple.
Yeah.
And then you also have, what I would say is our direct economic and strategic enemies, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. They're directly benefiting from this chaotic circus internally, and they're manipulating technology. It's an information war, right? They directly benefit from causing the chaos and the confusion and the argument between us. And then when you take into account Ukraine and Israel and the Hamas situation, you've got a very complex strategic issue, both militarily and both economically, because you also have to look at the national debt. I mean, we're at $34 trillion, and less than the next decade, we'll be paying more on debt service from the taxpayer and budget perspective on that debt than we are in military.
Jeez.
So it's a sideshow distraction that our strategic enemies are directly benefiting from. So when I look at little things like, should we be investing in foreign wars? That's complex, just to say the least. Like, it's super complex because Russia is not a friend to us.
But if you were to, I don't want to say layman, but if you were to, in layman terms, what's the answer for you?
Invest in home.
Yeah.
Invest in home.
100%.
That's what I wanted to hear. I just
protect the borders, invest in our home, build the infrastructure, educate our kids, pay our debt down, and fucking make sure we maintain sovereignty.
Could I dumb it down and ask an even dumber question? Because I see some like buddies get like super worked up on this stuff and go off on Facebook and Instagram and see all the rants and stuff. And my question is okay, so focus on home, right? But what about like the average family with all this stuff going on? I mean, is there anything anyone personally, like a guy like me, could really do? Or what do you do? Do you focus on it? Do you not focus on it? Can you help? Is there not a damn thing you can do? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, that's a problem too, because, you know, there's a huge distrust in mainstream media, right? Huge. So where do we find real information? Where do we get real facts and objective criticism that isn't, you know, spun and put into some echo chamber where we're just regurgitating information? It's really hard. It's chaotic to even understand the problem well enough to say, this is kind of what we need to do. So I try to simplify it to, like, we can affect, like, we're truly like this much, right?
Yeah.
Like I can reach out and touch you. I can talk to you. So it's work on the things that you can affect here locally, you know, like, are we talking to the school boards about, hey, we don't want wokeism in our schools. We don't want these failed ideologies. We don't want this. Like, how can we directly affect this stuff, like, right here in our backyard? And I think that has a force multiplying effect, because the more people that are being engaged locally, the more people that are banding together in the sense of, like, these are our things that we believe in. These are American values. We're just not going to capitulate on these. Then we get the right representatives, and through representatives, I think we can ultimately affect change.
What's cool is, it's one thing to say that, it's a whole different ball of wax for that to actually start happening.
Right.
But I think it is in very small ways. You know, wokeism is starting to finally become, you know, seen for what it really is, which is a disease.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not healthy. It hasn't done anybody any good. All it's done is just take the country and divide it even further than we already were. I mean, essentially, you know, wokeism, it's almost like we resurrected, like, the racism of the 50s and the 60s. It's just not about the color of the skin as much anymore.
Right.
They want to throw it out there every once in a while because racism is a powerful word. It's, you know, we want to call you a racist. That's like the ultimate, like, you know, for them, that's their ultimate weapon.
Right.
But do you tend to be more optimistic or more pessimistic?
I'm optimistic because I believe in America.
Yeah.
Like, I'm forever optimistic, and I refuse to be pessimistic, because I also live in somewhat of an echo chamber, right? It's like I hang out with guys like Andy Stump and Mike Glover, and, you know, I get to spend time with you guys, and I'm like, there's a lot of America. There's just a lot of America. I was just, you know, down talking to Joe, and I mean, he's got the largest podcast in the world, and he believes in America. Right. He thinks this woke shit is dumb.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, okay, you know, he believes in freedom. He believes in, you know, I've been saying, like, I love radical freedom. I love being radically free. I think
agree.
More responsibility, more autonomy, more freedom. Dude, nobody's ever gone wrong with that. I don't think. Like, I'm not talking about anarchy, but I'm saying more responsibility on the individual citizen that has values.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, man, I don't want to sound so excited about it, but I'm like, there's a lot of us out there that love this country and truly admire the future and say, I think we can get better. I mean, there's just no doubt that we can elect better presidents. Right? It's like, holy shit. Yeah. I mean, that guy.
What is happening?
That's like a mall mannequin up there.
Happening?
Like, what?
It's every day. Ass backwards. It's so off that I look at the situation and I try to be objective a lot. I look at it and I'm like, what am I missing?
What are we thinking?
Dude, that's what
are we missing?
I've watched the last 2 weeks of his interactions with people, and I thought to myself, where the fuck are we at right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. I've watched, and I feel like I'm pretty unbiased. I'm like, you know what, man, whatever. But I watched some of that shit, and I'm like, holy shit. And I'm not the same as him, but to answer your question, I think, because I asked that question a lot, like, okay, I'm going to worry about the war. There ain't shit I'm going to do about the war over in Israel. But there are things I can do here One of which, the most important thing, the only thing I really care about is solidifying and protecting and providing for my family and my people. And that's a pretty big reach, right?
That's all I really focus on.
Yeah, and so I think to answer that question, for those people who are like, because there's so many people that are so wrapped up in like, well, what do we do over there? I'm like, shut up. What are you doing right now in the things you have control over? Are you good with a weapon? Are you making money? Are you saving money? Are you able to provide for your family if shit goes awry? I think if you solidified your family more, the better and stronger we would get as a country. Yeah. I think that's the answer.
Yeah. It's self-aid buddy aid in the military. It's like, take care of your shit so you can take care of other people.
Exactly.
And it's like, if you got a strong family, like if you got to be strong, right? Individually, you got to be strong to be a strong father, to be a strong leader to your family. You got to be connected with your kids. You got to be growing like proud, great kids.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, like, I think you're doing the exact thing that you need to be doing. But if you're like, you know, blowing a bunch of time reading a bunch of gaslighting on the internet versus like reading your daughter's stories or your kids, like, man, that's a waste.
Yeah,
like, you're just flushing that shit down the toilet.
I think, honestly, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this. I'm still going to say it. I think that wokeism is a lack of confidence, period. I think those who are woke, quote unquote, have zero or very small confidence. And I think those who are really strong in their confidence are not even close to that ideology. And so if we're talking as a culture, as a whole, America, what can I do? Well, I can raise, teach, and preach how to become more confident to my children, to those around me, to my friends, to my family, because the more confidence you have, I think the less you think that ideology makes sense at all.
Right? Well, I think you've got to, you know, if you take a group of 10 people who are self-proclaimed woke or liberal, you're going to find a very mixed bag of people, because you're going to find people that truly, truly, truly believe that love conquers all. And they believe that just love, and that's, I think that's a smaller percentage of them, because people who actually believe in love and actually practice love don't act the way that, you know, some of the groups are acting. But then on the far end of that, you've got people who they just don't know where they fit in. They don't have, like you said, it's that lack of confidence. It's that same person who never kind of went out and found that core group of friends or that core thing that's their anchor.
Yeah.
And so they needed something.
Yeah.
And so why not just go out and latch on to the biggest thing that everybody's talking about?
The group.
So, the thing about that group, though, is I think it's smaller than everybody believes it is.
Yeah, I do
just
too.
because they're the loudest, right?
Yeah.
They make a lot of noise, and it's just been refreshing to see. And it's really only been the last, and from what I've noticed, the last year or so, where people are just like, no, we're not doing that shit anymore. Like, and even the people that were, you know, self-proclaimed woke, there's a lot of them that are just being like, yep, no, we're gonna
like the mask thing that they're starting to talk about bringing back, and everybody's like, listen, you already fucking pulled that card. I'm not doing that. That's another.
Dude. There's things that happen.
Do you think people feel dumb now?
Oh yeah, if people are being honest, if they didn't do what we did, and I would say we as the people here at this table, because I pretty much know everybody here, I don't think any of us were like, yeah, man, let me throw on a mask.
No.
But those who did, who blindly were like, I don't know, man, it's just so scared. I think those people are looking back going, holy shit, do you guys remember what 2020 was? We looked stupid as hell.
But there's also a good portion of those people that are doubling down.
Oh, yeah.
They're already in this far. They're on their ninth booster. They're not going to turn back, because they've committed not only their beliefs and their, you know, relationships and friendships, but they've committed their health.
How many boosters are you in?
I did not take the vaccine. And the thing is, I approached the vaccine. Don't say that.
Don't say that.
Just kidding.
I approached the vaccine the same way that I do everything. Just come kind of from I want to see all angles, and if this is good for me, then for sure I'm not going to resist just to resist. Just because somebody's telling me to do it and I don't want to do it, I'm not just going to not do it for that reason. I'm going to look at it and say, do I need this? What are the facts? But the problem is not nobody, but a lot of people didn't do that. They just, you hear it on the news, you hear it on the radio, and it's like, well, that's got to be it, right? It's got to be gospel. And so we've all kind of been led into this weird little, it blows my mind that they got not just a country, not just a group of people,
a world.
They got the entire world to sign up for this. How do you do that?
I don't know, dude, but that was crazy. And I'm like you. I will look at every situation. Listen, I'm not anti-mask. Now, I'm not going to wear one. But if I was sick right now and I was out in public, I have no problem wearing a mask because I don't want to get everybody sick. Outside of that, so when people are like, I'll die before I wear one. No. I don't mind wearing a mask, especially if I go to the hospital and my grandmother's sick. It has to make sense. That's why when you talk about people feeling stupid, none of that shit made sense. That's why you should feel stupid. That's you know.
So let me ask you another question, okay? Because you have the group, and obviously I feel the same way you guys do, right? But should I be screaming it on freaking Instagram and Facebook, or what's the answer? You know what I mean? Do you keep your peace and your happiness?
Dude, I think the answer...
Or do you scream it because, you know, you don't want to be the majority that's quiet?
I think the answer is...
Because everyone calls me a pussy for not talking. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you're not standing up. You didn't do what was right. It's like, okay, well, does that make me wrong, or is it happier for me when I just live a good life and raise good kids?
But that's the answer, though. That's to be the example is the actual answer. Like when people look at you and you're like, I'm not screaming Hamas or Israel. I don't give a shit about that. It doesn't affect me at all. And I'm living a beautiful life. I don't know what you guys are doing. I don't know what your life's about, but my life is wonderful and I'm being that example. Again, like, dude, it's being the example.
This is a scary question, and it's something that has always bothered me. Do you think in your lifetime we'll ever see foreign troops on U.S. soil?
No.
No fucking way.
No. You know, I'll tell you what, that Second Amendment prevents a lot of that shit from happening, boys.
God bless.
Yeah.
God bless.
When there are more guns in this country, thank God, than there are people, we've done something right, because I'll tell you what, everybody is fucking terrified to take on that task.
Right.
Like they are.
They should be.
They should be. I would be afraid to take on that task. And so when you think about like the possibilities, like these guys aren't stupid. They know they can't do it.
Right.
So they have to manipulate information and get people to, they have to fight from within.
Yeah.
They have to get us to fighting each other.
They've done a hell of a job.
They've done a hell of a job doing that. And that's why it's so scary when you look at things that are like, this just obviously doesn't make sense. What in the hell is going on? That's when you have to go, oh, red flag. This is just propaganda. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I need to like screen my filter for propaganda. And to add on to that question, sometimes the most courageous act is just admitting you don't have an opinion.
Right.
I got no problem doing that.
Like,
No, I like
you don't have to have an opinion on everything. It's impossible to. You don't have a, Chat GPT sitting around in your head. You can't have all the information, all the data. It's not possible. Nobody can do that. I mean, some of the most sophisticated intelligence people in the world have fucked this up. How are we supposed to like have an educated opinion and weigh in on it?
And that's the greatest answer ever, because the person who walks in the room that says, hey, I'm the dumbest and I don't know anything, I'm just here to learn, that's usually the one that knows the most. Yeah. I will say this though. This is a question. How many of you have fantasized about there being troops on our land?
On one hand, you picture like the glorious, like defending my homeland and stuff like that.
No, I'm not saying glorious. I would just love to see that happen.
It just doesn't go like that
for my own self. I know it's not going to happen. Yeah, but I'm just saying. Listen, maybe I'm the only child at the table, but I would love to try out a few of my weapons.
Yeah, until somebody sets off a freaking suicide bomb at the grocery store and your wife and kids are there.
I get it. I'm still telling you. I like the idea fantasized
I agree.
about somebody coming over and me going, "Hey, Dave, you fly, I shoot, and we're going to take out 150 today."
Yeah. Problem is just things are never as simple. This is like you said, this is a complex situation. What do you think between the Israel and the whole Palestine and the Hamas thing? Where do you think this goes?
Well, I think first and foremost you have to classify it's Israel versus Hamas, and Hamas has been deemed a terrorist organization. It's not the Palestinians. Right. Like it's like they're just people. Like they're literally just people. So Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Fucked up because of
and Hamas is a failed government. Like that's the other thing. They are a failed government. They were voted in. A terrorist organization was voted in, and they failed. And I think clearly being able to differentiate, like civilians in any time of war should not. I mean, I know this is not a controversial statement, but civilians should just be left out. There's actually something quite beautiful to the way we used to fight wars, where we would meet on a battlefield somewhere and fight each other and keep the civilians out of it. But
that was only in America. We didn't do that anywhere else.
Oh, right? We did it in Europe too. Yeah,
we did?
Yeah, the organized structured formation warfare. I mean, they did it.
You never seen Braveheart?
No.
But I mean,
let's meet. You know,
the clans come out and they battle like men.
it happened for, a brief amount of time where there wasn't just like, and there's always been, obviously atrocities and people who have taken over different cities and people have been enslaved over those cities, and armies have done, what they're supposed to do for whatever dictator, whatever state or government over the course of history. So I'm not naive enough to say that, but civilians should always be mitigated at every cost because they're the innocent, and we're all fathers, I think, here. So it's like, I've seen enough violence to understand how it affects people regardless of what country they come from, where they were raised. Like, seeing innocent people killed is traumatic, to say the least, for anyone. And that's what happens. It's impossible to fight a war inside a city with civilians where there's not city or civilian casualties. Right. So where this goes, one, if we roll back the clock to it's called the Abraham Accords, which Jared Kushner he was a Trump appointee. I think he did an incredible job
Trump's
putting that together. Too. Yeah. They did something unprecedented.
They did something that they've a century been trying to do.
Yeah. That multiple different administrations, professionally trained State Department, and we'll call them the world's leading subject matter experts, supposedly, right? Yeah. They did something that nobody else could do, and all of that was essentially unwound with this new administration. But it was working. Well, I mean, they had Saudi Arabia that was willing to sign into the deals with Israel, and they'll do kind of a summary where they were stabilizing, we'll just say they were stabilizing the region and getting people to at least play nice. And that had never happened before. And, with sanctions on Iran, they'd squeezed those guys down. They'd like got them to the point where they were basically starving, and not the country themselves, but the government. And they weren't able to support terrorist factions. And they brought people to the table so they could negotiate and solve things without war. And then new administration rolls in, blows everybody out, and then blows up the Abraham Accords, and then ultimately starts supporting Iran again. And then now the money starts popping back in because they don't benefit from that. The Iranians really want to see a destabilized Middle East, and they always want the scapegoat, which is, don't look at our government, look at what's happening over there. Yeah. Like, don't look at us, don't look at our failures, because there might be an uprising, we might be overthrown, and we might be out of jobs, and our heads ultimately will be on the line. They don't want that. They don't want to be judged on their policies. They want to be able to point over there and say, look at what's happening over there. Look at what they're doing. And if they don't have that means in order to point over there at somebody else's country and the failures of somebody else, and then point at big bad America, they're going to be held accountable. They're terrified of that. So I think, what I hope is that we'll get a new administration, we'll get people back into the negotiation table, we'll get the right people.
Abraham Accord is what you call it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. There's a good podcast that Lex Friedman did with Jared Kushner.
Yeah, it was incredible, right?
Incredible.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny because they recorded it. They started the first recording before the attack on October 6th, and so they were talking about it, and then it was like a few days before the attack. Then the attack happened before he released the episode, so he had Jared come back in, and so it's like a two-part podcast talking about. The first part is talking about like why the Accords were good and how they could help, blah, blah, blah. And then halfway through it cuts and it's like, hey, October 6th just happened. And so it talks about how they're actually being affected. It's incredible. Very fascinating. Mm. One thing that this whole thing has taught me is more about that region. Yeah. I'd be honest with you, 2 months ago, I probably couldn't have spotted their Jerusalem on a map. Pinpointed it. Yeah. You just don't pay a ton of attention because it's obviously so far away, out of sight, out of mind. But I like where you're going with that, because I agree that a new administration or just a new group of people, I hate to say administration because then it gets automatically linked to a party. The party system is the dumbest thing in the entire world.
It's dumb.
It is primitive. It is a bunch of cavemen out there banging clubs around. I mean, dude, it is so broken.
It's like I just put it like this. It's like, how much fun? Do you guys watch football at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, if there were only two teams playing,
right,
dude, are you serious? Every Sunday we got to watch the same 2 teams play.
Yeah.
And every time a new third team with potential starts rising up, they say, no, you can't play.
You can't play anymore. Dude, it's like it's so absurd because I think they're equally despicable depending on what day it is.
That's why I say I'm not right or left. Don't put me on either one of those.
Dude, I don't. I used to. I like to tell people, like, I'm a conservative just because I think less government better. That's kind of the default. I'm like, less government better. That's
always.
I'm that guy. That's how I default. Like, I'm a conservative. That doesn't mean I'm a Republican, by the way. It just means I'm a conservative and I adhere more to Constitution than I do a party. That's kind of the way I do politics. So
less government, less taxes. That's all I ask.
Less government, better. I simplify it to the easiest sentence for me to comprehend that I can, because every time I see these guys and I hear them and they make these decisions, and I mean, just the glaring effect of one is, I invaded and spent the majority of my, my 20s in a country based on false pretenses.
Right.
Like they said there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They were connected to the terrorism globally. They were directly responsible for 9/11. You name it. It was just a fiction or a facade.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying what we did was wrong, because we did a lot of right things over there, but I'm saying they were wrong.
Right. Yeah.
They were just blatantly wrong. And more importantly, we spent hundreds of thousands of lives in Iraq. We did thousands we spent thousands of American lives in casualties. So the blood and treasure and the national debt associated with that, I'm on the statement of saying, like, guys, I just don't think the way that we executed that was done well. And I think COVID showed us everything we needed to know about government officials.
Yeah.
They're just not qualified. They're just not. They're just
to make any real decision.
No, I mean, we saw how much power a mayor had, right? And it's like, who even knew? They couldn't even name the mayor. Like, who was the mayor before the 2020? You're like, I don't know who the mayor is. I mean, is that guy like, or woman, like, are they important? Can they do anything? Like, they might have like access to like a squeaky toy, right? Because they can't do shit other than that. No, like, they were shutting down cities. I'm like, who is this person making decisions? People were like, well, yeah, we should defund the police. What? That's crazy.
Yeah. I had no idea Beetlejuice was the mayor of Chicago.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what's cool for me is because I'm very optimistic. I'm probably overly optimistic in pretty much everything I do. If you think back, picture our dads sitting around this table. Probably all of them would have said they were either Republican or they were like in a party. It was their party. 100%. I remember my dad always talking about being a Republican, and he was just so proud of it. It was just like like a chant. Now you got another generation sitting at this table, and we've all decided that that's not for us. Yeah. And I think we all probably have the exact same beliefs, very kind of conservative, just stay in your own lane. Less government is better. I'm very liberal on some social issues. Like, I want people to be able to have their freedoms, and I don't want to mess with them.
Right.
But don't mess with mine. Like, don't tell me what I can and can't do. But what's cool is, 10 years ago, maybe one of us would have had those beliefs sitting at this table. Now, 100% of the people sitting at this table. So it shows that there's a shift. How long that shift takes and which direction it goes, I don't know, but I like it. I like that we're breaking down that system, and people are finally realizing, like, okay, we're better than this.
Yeah.
We're better than this. And the consequences, I think, finally became real enough where people were like, holy shit, like, this is no longer just, I don't like that guy up in office. This is like, I can't afford to feed my kids.
Right.
I am being forced to take a vaccine that could give me heart problems. Like, the consequences finally became, and I'm not saying they're over yet. I think we still got a rough road ahead of us a little bit, but it is cool to see that people's eyes are being opened, and on both sides of the table. You've got people that are very liberal and people that are very, very conservative. And I think that gap is starting to close up a little bit, or it's starting to become, commingled much more than it ever has been. And it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of promise, because it's, my kids got to deal with this shit.
Yeah.
That's, man, I remember the day that hit me, because I've had kids. My oldest is 12. That thought never came to me until I watched them go to elementary school, and I would leave them and they'd be gone for the day, and I don't know what's happening. I don't know who's around them, who's influencing them. And, you start thinking about, like, well, shit, that's just elementary school. Like, What happens when our kids go into the workforce? What happens when our kids go out and like start their own families? What kind of shit are they going to have to deal with? And it's one of those things where I've become extremely passionate about. I know that I'm not going to be able to make the world a better place for my kids because I can't change the world, but I can make my kids better people for this world, and that's my part, right? Yeah. And so we start doing that, start paying attention to it. We just come from a generation where all of our parents were probably boomers, right? Yeah. Or maybe a little bit before that, but they just had a very simple view of the world and the way things worked, and that was kind of passed down to us. And so we kind of went into this new generation of technology and communication and everything, but we had kind of our parents' mindset. So I think there had to be that steep learning curve where we went from that's black, that's white, you know, that's just very simple to that's a deep fake, that's not a deep fake, like that kind of stuff. So it's I mean, Hans always says this, it's what a time to be alive. I mean, it really is like, I like to compare this to other times in history. If there's anything like that there was this much change this quickly, and I can't think of any other. I mean, maybe like falls of some great empires, but even then, I can't think of a time in history when things have been evolving so quickly.
You can be governor because I remember that was on your vision board.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to be in politics at all. But when I was
on your vision board,
when I was in 5th grade, I had this weird dream or vision or something that I was going to be governor, and it always kind of just stuck with me. And so it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. And then I've told a few people about this, and everybody that I've talked to is just like on fire about the idea. And I've talked to some people in the state government, and they're just like 1,000% like that's your move. Don't know if it's going to happen. In fact, that was my question for you: is politics anywhere on the radar? Leadership?
I'd vote for you.
I used to think about it. Like I used to think about it quite a bit. Tulsi Gabbard's a good friend of mine. I love her. She's awesome. Like she's been a friend of mine for a long time. And you know, but I have a lot of people that I know in politics, like a lot of them actually. Because I talked about politics a lot. I used to talk about it on my show quite a bit, and then I kind of steered clear because I was like, wow, this is a quagmire of negativity. And what turned me to the other side in the context of I was really thinking, man, I want to go be governor of Idaho. That was kind of the thing. I was like, I'm going to go be governor of Idaho. And I went down and I talked to this guy Rick Scott, who's governor of Florida, and have a lot of respect for him. He's a super bright guy. He built one of the largest healthcare companies in the United States in less than 7 years. Wild. Wow. Yeah, wild. Extremely intelligent. Taught himself Spanish in like 3.5 weeks or something. Like, it was crazy. Like he's a brilliant guy. One of the best governors that the state of Florida has ever had. And I spent the evening, and we talked a lot about what the job is, you know, what it is. And he was like, it's the best job I ever had. He's like, I've been the CEO of a company. Now as the governor of Florida. He's like, I consolidated expenses. I reduced debt. I did all these great things for the state of Florida. And then he went into Senate, and he feels extremely duty bound. He's like, I need to save the country. I got to have my foot right here in the voting booth every day to push back and save the country. But then my position on that was like, this is hard. This is gonna be hard on my family. Like really, really hard on my family, to the point of which, like, your name, your reputation, even more so that just social media is going to be just run through the mud. And I never want my kids to have to endure, like, there's, what is that saying? It's like, don't make your kids the plight of their father. So it's something along those lines, right? So it's like, I just look at my kids. If I didn't have them, or if they're a little bit older, I might think about it, but I think it's just too big of a cost on my family, and I couldn't do it to them.
How many kids do you have?
2, 6 and 9.
6. Oh yeah. So you got young kids.
Yeah, I got young kids, and I've been really busy the last 10 years. Like, you guys are busy. I'm busy. You know, everybody's busy. And that's my most prominent passion outside of like the company, like being able to spend time with my family and being able to spend time with my kids and plug in with them. My dad and I are really close. He's 76 years old. Like, and like, for me, the next phase is like it's going to be a lot of family to kind of sort everything out. And that's not me avoiding the question. Like, yeah, I've thought about it, but like the one thing that keeps me from going, hell yeah, chips in is, dude, I don't want to put my family through that. Like,
but you're not taking it off the table.
No, I'm not. I think, you know, being party, that's the other thing, is like, you got to be part of a party. The Republican Party came to me a while ago, and they asked me if I wanted to throw my hat in. And I was like, no.
For nominee of?
For here, yeah.
Oh, for Utah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said no. I just was like, no, absolutely not. And it was a light kind of like prod, but I was like, not a chance. And I've just been fortunate to meet enough of these guys. Like and this isn't me name dropping at all. Like I don't want to sound like that. Like, oh, I know this guy and I know this guy, because that sounds so.
That's what I love about you, though. No, you're very unassuming.
So dorky.
But you are very well connected, like, but you don't talk about it
because it just sounds so dorky, man. Like I don't like that at all. But like, being in and around like, and this is going to sound like a name drop, I'm prefacing this, but like Don Jr. and I've been friends for a long time, and I fucking love the guy, but I've seen how hard everything has been. Like, man, and as a friend, just as a friend, looking at your friend and going, you know, Don takes that stuff and he takes it well. I don't know anybody else that does, like, kind of, and whether you like him or don't like him, like, hey man, it's your opinions to have. I'm not saying I agree with 100% of what he does politically and says politically, but he's my friend, and you don't just fucking turn tail and run from your friends. And I've just seen the stuff that he's had to endure. I'm like, wow, it's brutal. Yeah. It is brutal. Like, talk about the pit. Like, talk about pit fighting. Right, like, dude, you're burning your thumbs up on those blue check marks every day. Yeah. Wow.
And I know Don a little bit as well. And one thing that is just kind of sad for me to watch is you look at his social media, and he has to live in this negative quagmire, like you were saying. I mean, he doesn't have a choice. Yeah. This is the hand that he was dealt because of his dad. Right? Yeah. And so that's probably a good example for you to watch. Like, hey, you know, what happened with Trump, how it's affecting his son and his kids. That's you could be a mini example of that. Any one of us could, if we join politics and what it does to your family and your relationships. And I like how Jocko answers that question. He says no, like absolutely unequivocally no, but he's like, but if I needed to, I would. Right. And so what is that moment? What is that tipping point where guys like that have to start getting in the office? I don't know. Hopefully we don't have to get there. Hopefully we get honest people in there before then.
Gosh, it would be a totally different system if we started really like selecting the people that didn't want to be in politics. They just felt they were duty bound. You know, when you think about having virtue and you think about defining that through the acts of service and who would be best to represent us in that, like, I think Joe's making some joke about it where he's like, yeah, man, like, because like everybody says, like, you know, like Cam Haines and Joe Rogan or something like that. I was like, God, that would be awesome. Like, how much fun would that be to watch? Like, yeah, we're just gonna eliminate that entire thing. Like, we don't need that, you know. Like, gosh, man, it would be really, really interesting just to see somebody that just didn't give a shit. Like, I love watching Elon Musk and how incredible. Did you see him on that news show where he was like,
getting into the advertising,
the advertising, the blackmail.
Like, fuck him.
Yeah, he's like, yo, tell him fuck off.
I laughed so hard. I was like, thank God, man. Thank God there's a guy that is so above, like his IQ is so high and he's so wealthy. He's just like, fuck him. And then he called out the Disney CEO in the same conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, that is just epic.
No, I love the way he handled that too, because you know, the interviewer was like, well, what do you think that's going to do to the company? How do you think that's going to affect this and that? And Elon's like, let the world decide. Yeah. Because he knows. Yeah. Elon knows that the world is much bigger than this little political and, you know, high profile bubble that he lives in. And because, you know, he owns Twitter. Yeah. And so he understands what that looks like, and he understands how trends work with, you know, the companies that he's built. So that's kind of the way that I hope everybody starts to lean is, why don't we just let the world decide? Right. Instead of this group of people that have been empowered and, you know, have had their position in office for 20, 30 years. Politics shouldn't be a career.
No. No.
It shouldn't be a career. It should be a calling.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the LDS church. We're all LDS. One thing that happens in the LDS church is, I'm sure you're aware, you got bishops, right?
Yeah.
Bishops don't run for bishop. The church just calls the bishop. They pick some poor dude who's just doing his best to support his family. It's like, hey, you now are in charge of 400 people in this neighborhood.
Awesome.
And he's just like, but they're always the best. Like, there's a lot of good bishops out there because they're not guys that were out looking for it. They don't want to get nominated for that. They just got called and they got to do their job. It's a perfect example of what a good politician.
And their term limits too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, they turn bishops over every 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's 4 years and then you're done.
Done. Yep.
Yeah. See, I think that I honestly think that's the way it should be for a president. It's like you get 8 years and you're done.
Right.
I also think
8
that
years.
all you have to do is just defund the whole thing.
Are you saying get rid of the 4-year term and make it a solid 8?
One.
I
You get
agree.
one because
4 is not enough to do anything.
And because you get a we'll call it 18 months of actual shit here. I'm going to work, and then you're back on the stump again. You're out there trying to run for re-election. It's a distraction. So it's like you get voted in, you can just work for 8 years, and you're done.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to get reelected. That's it. It's you're done. You can go to work. I think that would solve so many. And hey, make it 6, whatever. Who cares? 4 years is really not enough to get anything done. By the way, 4 years you can. There's been a couple examples where guys have just really I was overly impressed with that podcast with Lex Friedman and Kushner, because he outlined they still did a ton of work with all the pressure. I was like, man, that is incredible how much work they did.
And he talked about that a lot too. He talked about my whole family's being attacked, Trump's being indicted every other day.
Yeah.
And he's like, meanwhile, I'm still having to put this thing together. He's still having to, and he did. He stuck with it and focused with it. And that's the difference between somebody. You can tell Jared Kushner doesn't want to be a career politician. No. He wants to be a problem solver.
Yeah.
And so you get more of those problem solvers in the right places, but it takes a long, like you're saying, it takes 6 to 8 years to build something good.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out we just found out how long it takes to undo a lot of good. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden was slashing shit from I'm actually so pissed off right now. He just got rid of my favorite policy. He got rid of the bonus depreciation on aircraft. So Trump put together 100% bonus depreciation. So you can go buy a jet for $5 million and write it all off the first year. Biden just reduced that down to 60% for some unknown reason. Just little things like that, though, that show that, how does that help anybody?
Right.
That doesn't help anybody. All it does is hurt people that had found a way to make, take advantage of that in a good way.
Right.
It's really frustrating to watch how that stuff happens. But I think this is where most people don't stop when they should. You see something, you get frustrated, and you realize there's not much you can do about it, or you can change it and you go and start a petition or whatever. But most people just stay frustrated and stay upset, and they stay in that lane of just this negative feedback loop of I hate Trump. Well, now all of a sudden Instagram and Twitter and all your algorithms are going to be feeding you the same shit, so you get stuck in this echo chamber that you can't get out of, even if you tried to. And then even when you do hear something rational or something true from the outside, you can't believe it, because your whole personality, your whole world is based around this chamber that you live in, that you've created yourself. It's pretty wild, man. It's I'm learning a lot about psychology and what makes people tick, and when you see somebody who you think has it all together, which as you're younger and you're growing up, you look at the presidents and the congressmen and the senators, and you're just like, these guys got their shit together. And then when you start realizing that they don't, they're just like us. Literally everybody has got their fair share of demons. And so then you start watching how these people are putting on a show. They become actors. Yeah. That's legitimately, I think, what most politicians are right now. They're just actors. Yeah. They're out there playing a part because that's the part that their party wants them to play, and they were put in this position to play that person, rather than be the person that goes in there and say, all right, here's a stack of policies. This one sucks. We got to change this one. We got to change this one. That's not what they're doing. No. They're just this is the most we've ever talked about politics on the show. And it's
most I've ever talked about politics in my whole life.
Yeah. And honestly, I think there's that's a good thing for us, because that allows us to focus on things that we enjoy. That allows us to focus on being productive, which is why none of us really bark about politics too much on social media. I think it's coming to the point where if we have to get involved and you have to start making like revolutionary changes, then obviously that's a different conversation. But it kind of goes back to the whole thing of staying in our lane. And that's one thing that you do really well. I don't know you that well. I know you through the podcast and stuff like that. And I followed your career, and we, you know, like I said, we've been around the same people, but one thing that I've seen you do extremely well is you do what you're good at. And we talked about this in Moab.
Yeah. I focus on core competency. That's what I do. It's like, hey, you know, there's a couple things I feel like I'm really good at where I provide a lot of value, and I just like keep my head down, keep focused on that. To be fair, there's so many distractions. Right. Like you could pull yourself off into a million different things, and it degrades the value of your life. It takes me away from my kids, and it makes me you know, a worse CEO. It takes away my capabilities to be a father. It takes away from my connection with my wife. Like the real things, like what is that saying? It's you know, it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than it is a rich man to heaven. And like the money that is associated with success is it's something that you can measure based on, these are goals and objectives associated with my endeavor in business, and then how I can grade myself as to how well am I doing my job, right? But it doesn't tell you anything about if you're a good person. It doesn't. Right. It doesn't tell you if you have a loving family and a great wife. It doesn't tell anything about, are you connected to your kids, and are you building great people? It just says, I'm good at business. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, shit. I'm not saying it's easy. It's actually very difficult to be good at business. But I'll tell you, the more difficult challenge is trying to be a great dad, a great husband, and balance business. Right. And people say, you know, your work-life balance. And I'm like, no, dude, what you're talking about is living a successful and fulfilling life. It's not like, if you're having to be told like you got to turn down the volume on your work and stop working 80 hours, you're probably doing something wrong. Like I'm just saying, like, you're probably doing something wrong. Yeah.
So what excites you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that excite me. You know, I think people are built to be creative. I think from just pure execution, like I think we're miniature versions of God and creation.
I think that's what I like about you is you have not lost that creative spark. You built Black Rifle, which took a lot of creativity. You went public, which is, again, a lot of brain damage, a lot of creativity, whatever you want to call that. But that's typically, you know, the route that a lot of successful CEOs and business people, they'll take, and then that was it. They have their accomplishment, and they're gonna reap the rewards from that for, you know, the rest of their life and be happy. But you don't seem content just staying in that lane. I'm not talking about coffee. I'm talking about the lane of just having built a successful business. And, you know, I asked you down in Moab, like, would you ever exit or sell? And you're like, then what?
Yeah. Why?
Go start another coffee company. Yeah. I mean, you're already doing what you love. You can fine tune your position, which is what you're doing. But it's one of those things where your creative spark is very visible, and I think that's probably why people are drawn to you, because you're not out there making a ton of noise. You're not saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. I think people see that your integrity through your actions, rather than you saying, I believe this and this is what I'm going to do. You just do it.
That's what I believe to the core of myself. I believe in leading by example. I don't find myself as a natural leader. I don't think of myself as somebody that this is my destiny in life. I go back to what I truly love is trying to accomplish very, very difficult things, and then doing that through the acts of what I would define as virtue. So if we look at, you know, wisdom, courage, prudence, those are very specific things that I try to execute on every day. You know, try to make yourself a better person by learning as much as you can about whether it's fatherhood or business or
are those actually like loud, visible guardrails for you, like on a decision-making basis?
100%.
So when you're approaching a big decision or a project, whatever it is, wisdom, integrity, that stuff is there.
It's there. It's there every day. It is the only way that I I know how to live my life, and I never want to sound preachy whatsoever. I know that, and I go back to this thing where your purpose, right. Like what do you put on this planet to do? I know what I'm put on this planet to do. It's to become a good man.
Yeah.
Okay. What does good mean? Okay. I've defined that through, this is the way that I would define virtue. And then these are the corridors in which that I ultimately action those things. And I only know how to action, like actions speak louder than words. Most of the time I'm not an orator in the context of like, I'm not a great speaker. I do what I do for my community. And we go back to the, why'd I start a company? I started a company so I could pay my bills. Right. I love coffee. I want to pay my mortgage. That was it. Like I wanted to build a coffee shop, pay my mortgage, and raise my kids within my small business. That's all I wanted to do. Spend time with my kids, plug back in with my family, be able to meet people every day from my community, give back and talk to people. That was it. I built the company to a certain point where I knew I could build something a little bit bigger and I could get back to my peer group, which is the Global War on Terror veteran community. Like I have a huge moral obligation to them. I'm here. I got all my fingers and toes, and I'm grateful for that every day. It makes me a better father. It makes me a better businessman. I hug my kids and tell them that I love them every day that I'm home, more than you guys, I'm sure do the same thing, but it is so upfront and personal for me because I know that there are a litany of people that would trade me places like that. And I also know that there are lots of my friends that are not here today that would do that if they had the opportunity. So I'm extra connected. I'm doing it twice, 3 times, 4 times. I do it 3 times in a row. My kids are like, okay, dude, back off. I got you.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, and these are the things like I've tried to do. And as we grew the company, I looked at it as like, I have this great and amazing place that I love. It's my family. And I go into this company that I build that I love with people that I fucking care about. And it perform a flywheel effect, which is I'm going from a place that I love to a place that I love. And then it spins faster and faster and faster. And then it creates inertia in the direction that you want to go.
Oh, I like that.
And that's what I wanted to build.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, now how do we build a great company? And I didn't want to go public. Like, it wasn't something that I was like, we got to go public because this is going to be good for my ego. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but I also knew if guys from my peer group could see that I started something in my garage, that I went to the New York Stock Exchange in less than 9 years, they could go start a business. They could emancipate themselves from their 9-to-5 lives where they're miserable, and they could look at me and go, well, that guy's not that smart. Right. I can do that. Yeah. You know, like just lead by example, man. Like I got to go out and sacrifice every bit of me to make sure that if people look at me and say, he did it, he suffered the consequences, I can do it too. And I can provide a force multiplying effect for other veteran entrepreneurs that want to go out and do the same thing. It's my moral obligation to the community to show people. And at the same time, I got to give back. Yeah. So I've got to create a generator that gives back millions of dollars. And this isn't some, you know, like beating the drum. It's like I try really hard to, when it comes to the P&L, I look at this and it's now at 10.5. We gave back just about $4 million this year to veteran-related nonprofits. So between cash, just straight up cash donations and coffee, and then next year it'll be more, and next year it'll be more. And I don't put that out all the time. I'm not, you know, because I also don't want people to think that I'm rubbing it in people's faces either, because it's like, it's one of those things that I love it. It's what I built. This is what I want to do. And these are the things that I stick to. That's what I want. So it has to be bigger than me. I got to give back to the community. I got to lead by example. And what I tell people is, don't necessarily listen to the things I say. Just watch the things I do and say, if that dumb fuck can do it, I can sure as hell do it.
I kind of follow the same motto. I'm very much, I don't want to talk about what I'm doing. In fact, it's almost to a fault. It is a fault because I don't communicate very well. I just go and do. Mm-hmm. I just go start doing whatever it is that I feel like I need to do, and hope people catch on. And there's a fine line you got to dance there between giving people a heads up, like your wife and people that are close to you, so that they can at least understand, if not support you. But it's hard when a personality like yours and mine don't want to tell people what we're doing. No. Just want to go do it and want the best team possible to be able to make it happen. Do you have any sort of, what's the best way to call this? Let's call it a disability, because that's a strong word. Yeah. Such as ADD or inability to focus, or learning, like short-term memory, anything like that that's ever recognizably.
No, I don't, not that I'm aware of any, at least I think, ADHD is one of those things that, I think it's also overdiagnosed and wrongly diagnosed, because I see a lot of men like us that probably, I don't know if you guys were exceptional students.
No.
Okay, right.
I had the ability.
I wasn't. I was labeled as ADHD.
Straight A's.
Straight A's?
No.
Really? Yeah.
Barely.
I barely got through.
I didn't fit into the academic category very well. I just didn't. But I am just comparatively, I'm very driven.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go out and just grind myself into moon dust on a regular cadence to do things. And I think ADHD is diagnosed because the kids like us that don't fit into the, like, sit down, wait for the bell, go on to your next class. If you didn't pick something up this way, the way the actual teacher was telling you to do it, you're labeled as kind of a dummy. Actually, that's not true, because if you put those guys under an IQ test, it's actually the fucking opposite. Yeah. And I think we need guys like us and people like us, we actually need a separate way to educate us. Yeah, I firmly and 110% agree with this, because I'm not good at regimented, like 9 to 5 bells and whistles. I am horrible at that. I'm actually horrible at having a boss. I knew I'd never fit in anywhere. Like, I loved the job that I was in, because I was like, you're going to give me a small team. We're going to go have basically like very unrestricted and uncontrolled chaos, and I've just got to solve really complex problems.
Done.
Dude,
best job in the world.
Sign me up. Yeah. That's awesome. And then I knew that I wasn't going to fit in anywhere else. I was like, I got to go start a company, because I'm not politically correct. I won't be able to work in a corporate environment. Geez, okay, I've got to go do this thing. Yeah. And so, to answer your question, I don't think so. Like, I don't have a hard time at all, like, staying focused. I could read a book a day. It wouldn't bother me at all if I'm interested in it. Now, I can't read things I'm not interested in at all.
It sounds to me like you could potentially have ADD or whatever that is, but you have turned whatever that is into a superpower, and you've turned it into one of your greatest strengths. And that's one thing I've done too. Attention, span and ADD, that type of stuff is something that I grew up with all the doctors, telling my mom that I had ADD, and my mom was like, no, just ignored the diagnosis. And I'm so grateful she did, because that never got put on Ritalin or Prozac or anything like that. And I was just able to learn how to work with my creativity, and I've learned how to, when you're able to focus. Well, ADD is the inability to focus, but really it's just the ability to hyper focus. Yeah. And you can hyper focus on something, and I can accomplish tasks in 2 hours that take somebody else 2 months. And you're the same way with the stuff that you've built. I have an infinite amount of energy for the things I'm into. Yeah, and I have to try to turn myself off. Yeah, I have to force myself to be like, okay, dude, disconnect. So to your point, but I have zero patience, and I cannot do anything that I'm not. On the flip side of that, you cannot force yourself to do something you don't want.
I can't force myself to do it. It's like a form of torture that is probably worse than like a Vietnamese prison cell or something.
But dude, I think that's a realization that a lot of people, especially in the older generation, like my dad was the same way. He should have been a car salesman. He was actually trained to be a Green Beret. He was medically discharged. But he had his dad who put a lot of pressure on him, and you wanted him to be smart, wanted him to go to school, do all that stuff. And so my dad, who literally would have been the best carny or salesman or whatever it is in the world, he felt this pressure from his dad. So after he was medically discharged and he got better from his cancer, he went and got a degree in manufacturing engineering, and he hated it, but he felt like that's the path that he had to follow. So I think to your point of saying the things that I'm really good at, I am really good at those, and I've got infinite amount of energy, and the things that I don't, I just don't. People think that that's wrong. I think we're brought up thinking that, no, you're supposed to follow this template. Here's what you're supposed to be excited about. Here's what you're supposed to, like, this weird template is kind of defined who we're supposed to be, because that's what our parents were, and that's what the generation before them was. But I think the biggest and most powerful realization I ever had in my entire life was what you just said, was that, if I like that, I'm going to be really good at it, and I should probably pursue that. And I'm going to, you know, I feel like the things that I'm really good at, I don't have to put in any effort at all. Yeah. It just happens. Same. And so that's one thing that, in fact, you know what, that's going to be my checklist item for this episode is, and I don't even know how to say this or how to get somebody to do this, but I think it would be make a list with 2 columns. On the left, write down all the things you enjoy doing, all the things that you just love, that just, and this can be anything from work to crocheting. I don't care. On the right-hand side, write down all the things that you don't want to do, that you hate doing, that don't give you any sort of motivation and energy, and then go down that list, and you got to check off the ones that you got to live or die by, like taxes, you know, the stuff that you can't just avoid. I bet you your list of things that you don't like to do will get much smaller, and it'll become a list of things that you don't have to do. And so I think a lot of us get stuck doing a lot of shit that we don't want to do, and we don't realize that is, we're not depressed. We're not, you know, we don't need SSRIs. We're just stuck doing shit that we don't like. We're kind of caged animals a little bit by this weird format that we've been thrust into society. And so, do that for me, guys, with your list. Just write down on the left-hand side all the things you enjoy, right-hand side all the things that you don't enjoy, and then go through and fine-tune them and figure out, on that list of things that I enjoy, how much more fuel can I throw on this one?
I think that's what that checklist really should be. More people should figure out what they like and want to do, and do more of that. Every person I've ever met that's successful is really bad at a lot of things.
But this doesn't mean that tomorrow you have to go start a business and be successful.
No.
Bite off little bites at a time.
Well, yeah, but I think even to that, like, there's a lot of people who should not be an entrepreneur, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't be a CEO. And if I'm a good CEO, then I should be a CEO, and I should make millions and millions and millions of dollars as a good CEO.
Or somebody else, and be okay with that.
Because I'm an operator, or I'm a manager, or whatever that is. I think for your checklist, you find out what you're really good at and start leaning more into that, and then stop doing the shit you're not interested in, and or hire somebody to do that, and watch how much your life changes.
Just look at the list of things that you're doing that you don't want to be doing, and figure out, can this be eliminated? Can this be delegated to somebody else?
Delegated is the best.
Delegated is huge. That's like where it comes to the taxes and the stuff that, you know, accounting, all those things that I hate doing. Just delegate it.
Does this mean I should take the band on tour?
Take the band on tour. I mean, dude, that's the thing. You're passionate. You're loving playing music right now. What could go wrong?
Why wouldn't you do more of it?
Because I got to pay bills.
Yeah, but I think that's a problem, because I think that one day you could pay more bills doing what you love more.
Maybe. We'll see.
I also think, because I have this conversation a lot, I mentor a lot, and for some reason I attract people who make a lot of money, and the first conversation I have with them is, how many assistants do you have, and how often do you delegate things?
What's the answer?
Well, usually they're like, I don't have an assistant.
Oh, shit.
Little lip pillow.
And I'll add to that. I do something similar to what you're talking about. I call it time and effort triage. It's built on an 80-20 principle.
Yes.
And Pareto's principle, if you guys want to look it up, it's 80-20. It's, 80% of your results come from 20% of your activity.
Yep.
And
you call it Pareto principle?
Yeah, Pareto's principle.
80-20 rule.
Yeah, 80-20 rule. And it's time triage. So I took something from the military, and I took, lots of different things from the military. Course of action development. I write mission statements, which are the who, what, when, where, why for the things I want to accomplish. I write through, and I look at them, and I look at the time that I'm spending throughout the day and the week, and I go through, and I call it chopping out the white noise.
Yes.
If this thing is not directly yielding me a positive ROI to where I need to go, or directly contributing to the 80% or the results that I'm trying to achieve,
or if it's keeping,
it gets nuked.
Yeah.
And it gets nuked for a reason, because it's also the time that you spend against things that provide you an immense amount of happiness that don't return you a financial return.
Fulfillment too.
Yeah.
Happiness and fulfillment.
You have those things that are like, this is the thing. And I was just talking to Mike Glover about this, because I was like, Mike, you gotta like, and I wasn't giving life coaching advice because Mike's a very competent guy. I was like, dude, why are you doing this thing? You can't, you can't scale this. You have a finite amount of time, and you're spending this on this one task. You can't scale it, but you can scale this other thing that you're spending like a little amount of time when you're in.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Dive into this. And he's like, fuck, you're right.
Yeah.
And I go through it, and I create a diary. I have a diary that I write everything in. So I have a library of, and it's a journal, not a diary.
I was going to say women call it a diary.
Yeah.
Whatever. Do you have a key? And is it under your pillow?
I have 2 little girls, and I'm getting them into the process too. So I'm used to talking to them about, hey, are you writing in your diary? Are you going through your goals? Like, what are your dreams and your aspirations? How do you want to do that? Every day. It's a 5-pencil rule is what I call it. So I have 5 pencils in a box, and I sharpen them in the morning, and I write until those things are down to the fucking nub.
All 5.
Holy shit.
How long does that take you?
It depends. It depends on how much energy
but
that I have. In general, it's
you're not resharpening the same pencil.
No.
One pencil's
gone, and I don't run them all the way down to the wood. I run them down to the fact that, or to the point where it's too big and it's too soft, and I don't like it. It doesn't feel right.
Are you coloring with them, or is it a full?
I draw pictures. No, I draw pictures in it. Like I drew a picture the other day. I was thinking about the balance, like prudence and balance.
Yeah.
And I was drawing this scale, and I had to visualize it where, it was the how much time and energy you're spending, and then providing the correct amount of balance. And I was like, the tug of war that we all face between the things that we know return 0 ROI, and you kind of like them. And this was my thought, because I was watching some stupid show on Netflix, and I was like, watching this stupid show is a colossal waste of time. But sometimes, like, you just need to check out and zone out or whatever. But there was too much time. I was like, all right, I drew this tug of war between the things that are easy and lazy and the things that you need to do. But I was like, I need to get more time, put more energy into the things that are giving me more energy, and balance this thing out a little bit. So it was like time triage. I do it all the time. I journal every day. I talk about, and mainly this is for my kids. It's for me, and it's for my kids, because when I die, my kids are going to have a library of my stupid ideas, and they're going to be able to. Technology, if we do it on an app or we do it on a phone, that's not going to be around, dude. They're not going to be able to plug it into a computer and read it. But my kids are going to be able to go through and read all of my journals and go, this is what Dad was thinking on, November 30th when he was flying home from, San Antonio to Salt Lake. And this is kind of what he was thinking about at this point in time. And in most of them, I start out as, I love you. I want you to be successful. I want you to be brilliant and bright. And it's a letter to my kids. And then I go into my journal, and I go back through, and I start looking at my time and what I'm thinking about. And I start scratching off. And I'm sociopathic about people that don't provide positive energy. So it's positive fuel. It's toxic fuel and positive fuel. If you have toxic fuel people, they get the fuck out of your life.
Right.
Like they're gone. If you have toxic and or zero-sum things that aren't adding value, it's gone. It has to be gone. It's a triage. Ooh. We don't have enough time.
I like that. I'm gonna add that to my checklist of create the list of names.
Yeah.
Because that is probably the most effective. So anytime you hear personal development stuff, you hear people talking about become better, do better, it feels overwhelming. Where do I start? Like, where do I start? What's going to affect the biggest change? That right there, I think, could be one of the first steps that anybody universally could take to just have more energy tomorrow, to feel better tomorrow. Also, it's probably the biggest thing you could do in your life to get anywhere to the next level 100%. Is to get rid of the people that are draining, that are do nothing, that are negative. That's my favorite thing.
Toxic behaviors.
Cut them the fuck out.
Toxic behaviors, the people that tell you can't do that, or they try to. There's a difference between pressure testing your ideas with people that you trust and those guys trying to like blow holes in it.
Yeah.
That's different than people that tell you can't do shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's just a person that wants to see you fail.
There's productive criticism, and then there's people who are just negative, and you're like, this isn't doing anything for you to say what you're saying.
It's they want to see you fail. If that person is telling you can't do it secretly, and by the way, like you guys have, we've all been to this ladder of success. There are thousands, if not more than that, people, and some of those people in your life, they're like, I kind of want to see these guys auger in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man. I am sociopathic about eliminating that out of my life.
Dude, I love that.
I'm the same as you.
I really love that. This is fun talking with you about this because I think on the other shows and stuff, I've heard you talk more about people, places, procedures, that type of thing.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to kind of get a peek into your brain and then see. You don't take a company public by being a slouch. It's not easy to do. It sucks.
Yeah.
IPO, anything Wall Street related with a company it's just tricky business. Which I guess that'd be a question for you is, do you regret doing the IPO?
No, I don't. I don't regret it. I don't regret it for one second.
You don't seem like a guy who has a lot of regrets.
No, I go into things fully cognitively aware of what the long second and third order effects are going to be, and I absorb the consequences before I do them. I completely diagnose and digest them intellectually, physically, and emotionally. That way, there isn't a regret.
Yeah,
I would have regrets if I went into it like unwittingly, but I
didn't make an actual educated decision towards it.
It was my plan after about 4 or 5 years. I knew what I had to do. And the reason I had to do it, which is part of this too, is we're in a culture war. Like we're in a culture war, and I'm tired of these. I know we got out of politics. I'm going to go back into it, but I'm tired of these woke fucking companies running the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah. Like Silicon Valley company does it again, and like, fuck off. Like, like I have the Constitution, the American flags, and George Washington crossing the Delaware in my conference rooms. Like, I love this country, and I'm not going to let all these left-wing idiots monopolize our trading. Like, I'm just not. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, there's a combination of reasons that I feel I'm morally obligated to do this. I mean, I didn't make any money in the context of like, it wasn't directly benefiting me financially to do that. It wasn't.
So you got a seat at the table and a microphone.
Yeah. And I wrote the OA. The only way I did it was if I could maintain control. Mm-hmm. And I have a consolidated, it's basically a consolidated voting rights agreement. So the majority of the vote has to go with me. So it doesn't matter. I could be the fucking janitor over there. I still run the company. Yeah. Smart. So it's like, I win in the context of things where it's like, yeah, I think this is the right thing to do, but I'm never going to relinquish control. I share control really easily. I had a co-CEO for a long time. I believe in a meritocracy. I believe that maybe the best idea win. I don't believe in being a tyrant. Those are all the things. Like, I love when people are like, dude, I think this is a good idea. I'm like, oh, damn, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
Dude, like I have spot bonuses all the time. It's hunting trips. Like I give guys elk hunting trips here in Utah. And Noveski, I bought like a bunch of Noveski rifles for guys. So it's like when guys do epic stuff, I'm like, you're going on an elk hunt this year, or here's a new rifle, or here's a new pistol. Like I fucking love that.
Well, it's cool because you hear Rogan talk about it. The guy's got access to anything he wants at his fingertips, and the thing that gets him the most excited and fired up, talking about elk hunting.
Yeah,
it's something so simple.
So simple. Do you guys hunt?
No, I haven't.
We're hunters, but not active hunters. It's been years.
That would be the correct. We're hunters, but not active hunters.
I was like, I did that. Like I got turned way into it a couple years ago, and once again, it's just, okay, I got to go down the rabbit hole on it because it's fun.
100%. So we talk about this all the time. We got our vision boards and stuff. And back, in my 20s, I would throw anything on the vision board. No big deal. Just throw it up there because it was all just kind of like big dreams and goals. I've accomplished everything that's on my vision goal or on my vision board, which has now got me in a place where I'm like, do I really want to put this on there right now? Because I know whatever I put on there, I'm going to go all in.
Yeah.
I can't do anything half-assed.
Yeah.
And so that's where if you're going to do it, you seem like the type of guy who, when you get in on something, you're all in.
I'm all in.
100%. And there's a little bit more to it than just being all in. It sounds like you spend some time and you think about it and you analyze it and you have a plan rather than just jumping in the deep end. I'm the type of guy who usually just jumps in the deep end, and my plan is I'm good at stuff,
right?
And then I just kind of figure it out. But there's the analytical mindset, which it seems you have a little bit of an analytical mindset.
It's both.
Yeah.
I try to
have a
really,
hybrid.
I try to do really. What I try to do is risk mitigation course development. So I just look at it and I say, okay, so this is my course of action development. This is the greatest we can lose. This is the most we can win, right? Yeah. And then I pressure test different ideas on the second and third order effects. I have a whole matrix that I've
you written a
run
book?
through. I haven't. No.
Why not? You should write a book. Does it interest you?
Yeah, 24. I'm going to take all my journals and kind of pull them out and then like go through.
Just make sure that you say diaries when you put them in.
Yeah. Dear diary.
Dear diary.
Okay, guys, I wrote a book and
diary.
it's all in my diaries.
No,
dude. I mean, that's you really already have probably written 5 books.
Maybe more, bro. 5 pencils.
Yeah,
the 5 pencil rule, and it's like it's little aluminum box I've been carrying around, and I can't remember where we're at, but I love the writing process and the analytical through just courage, where it's like I call it the 70% good enough rule, which is like I got 70% of the information. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Like
I think ours is the 30%. All right, I got 30% of the information. Let's go.
It's here. My course of action development's done. My risk mitigation's done. Like I've done a bunch of shit, and I'm like, I don't need this. The other 10% is about optimization, or the other 30% is just about optimization. I already know the heavy macro stuff, and I know enough to go in. So then I'm like, okay, let's go.
You know what the truth is that I do want to say, because I have this conversation a lot. So many people get paralyzed by analyzing.
Yeah.
I don't think that you ever really get more than 75% of the real information ever. And then you have so many people that are waiting for the other 25% before they make that jump. Now, Dave and I are very alike in this. Like, I'll get 12 to 20%, and then I'm like, I'm in, let's go.
Yeah.
And you're saying 70%, but I think it's worth noting for those that are listening, like, you're never going to get 100%, and those, which is 99% of people that actually are waiting for that, are the ones who do nothing in their life.
Paralysis by analysis, right? It's like it just needs to, and I'll blow those people out or put them in the right position because they'll create obstacles.
They're great inside your company,
depending on where you put them. Like you can't put them in a dev position because they'll just like slow everything down to the point where you're going, okay, time to go. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I that's probably, I'm seen as impatient. Like I am. Like most entrepreneurs, I'm very impatient.
I put those people on my cleanup crew in my businesses. So I'll jump in, I'll cause chaos, and then when the chaos passes, I'll go, hey, analytical guys, who are slow to get shit done, come figure out all the shit we fucked up.
Clean it up.
Here.
That's exactly that's exactly what we do. It's exactly. I'm like, hey, we're gonna get in. We're gonna go on this expedition. We're gonna get 10 miles in, and by the way, you guys are gonna have to be back here cleaning shit up because we're gonna break some stuff. Like, things are gonna go wrong, and I got a litany of different things that we've done wrong over the past, but it's like things are gonna go wrong, guaranteed. But I've done enough to know kind of what's gonna go wrong, and or I got the talent in the back to be like, I'm a jack of all trades. I'll clean all this shit up for you. So
and the reward was worth the risk.
Oh yeah,
that's the analysis that you did in the beginning, is figuring out that risk reward, which is kind of a hard thing to do sometimes. And that's like where you said you get to the point where it's like, that's as good enough, 70%, or it's as good as I can understand it. That's as far as I can see down the road. All I can do now is jump in and let fate, luck, and hard work figure out the rest. And that's kind of I like that strategy. I mentioned to you before you came on the show that we do this checklist concept. Are there any things you want to share with us? I'm telling you, this could be anything from buy Kroger brand white bread or whatever.
Sleep. Like I've found then if I could rewind and tell myself one key factor, because I've realized, and I worked on about 4.5 hours of sleep every night because I was operating under this warrior ethos of like, you're going to sleep when you're dead, blah, 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 blah. Total dog shit.
Which is the quickest way to get you dead.
It's 100%. That is the clear path to death. To death and destruction, blowing up your business, blowing up your personal relationships, blowing everything up. Like, find the time to educate yourself on how to sleep well.
Yeah.
There's a book called Sleep Well. Yeah. And there's a lot of science out there. I mean, I think Andrew Huberman's gone through some of this, but I create a ecosystem for sleeping everywhere I go now. It's like blackout curtains, noise machine, and I try to go to bed at a reasonable time, and I try to get at least 7.5 hours. And you got to train yourself. You got to be disciplined when it comes to sleep, because sleep is the cornerstone to the performance of the next day.
Right.
And if you don't have enough sleep, you can't function. You can't function cognitively. No. You can't function. And I saw a cognitive decline because of the lack of sleep several years ago, and then I was like, okay, I got to fix this. I got to do this. So cornerstone, everything that I have, and it's like before you go into like ice baths and all this other fucking crazy stuff, dude, if you're not like sleeping, you can't work out. You don't have the discipline to eat well. It is the premise, the foundation that you're going to end up building the entire existence of your life on.
Yeah.
It's so important. And the lack of knowledge out there from everyone, it's insane. They don't do enough research and educate themselves on sleeping well and how to sleep well.
Do you use a sleep tracking device?
I do, yeah. So in the Garmin, I have got it, and then I've got another one too that sits on my wrist.
Oh, I just got the other day, because dude, sleep is like that's my baby. Don't mess with my sleep. I sleep like, text me the other day, like making a joke that I wouldn't be up till 9:30. It's not far from the truth some days. 9:30 is aggressive. I think the latest I'll sleep in without feeling like a total lump of shit is about 8 o'clock.
Right.
But I enjoy my sleep. So the other day I got, and I actually, this is a sponsor, not of the podcast, but of our YouTube channel, the 8 Sleep. Huberman talks about all the time, the pod.
Yeah.
So it's basically a mattress cover that has heating and cooling built into it, but it also has tracking. So the last 4 or 5 nights I've been able to track my sleep, and me being somebody who's so obsessed with sleep and getting the right amount of sleep and feeling good, I wasn't doing anything to really track it other than waking up and thinking, how do I feel?
Right.
Just basing it off of how productive I was when I woke up. So now I can do it. And the 8 Sleep Pod will go in and it'll show you all of your different metrics. So it'll show you the exact amount of, let's see, because this is funny that you brought this up, because this morning I woke up kind of feeling like shit because I looked at my sleep score this morning and it was 70 out of 100. Yesterday I woke up and I was feeling great. I just felt good, sprung out of bed. Before I even looked at the app, I was like, I feel great. Looked at the app, I got a 91 yesterday. And the difference was the quality of sleep. So I got an hour and 26 minutes of REM sleep yesterday and an hour and 30 minutes of deep sleep. Today I got an hour and like just barely over an hour of REM sleep. And then I got more deep sleep, but it kept on getting interrupted by these weird like sleep cycles of waking up. Right. So it shows you literally everything. So once I realized what this was doing and it was tracking, I started changing what I was taking at bedtime for supplements. And, I'm a mad scientist when it comes to what I put in my body. I will try just about anything. And so I put together this little cocktail that all of a sudden I'm seeing my sleep score go up and up and up. And last night, I didn't have my concoction. I had a bunch of candy and stuff. And so, dude, it's so cool. You can track it. So it's no longer a guessing game.
Right.
And I think everybody, whether it's the Garmin watch or the pod, I like the pod because it changes the temperature. Have you used a pad like that?
Yeah, I use a Euler, I think.
I have the Euler too.
Yeah.
Euler's good.
Yeah.
I like the Euler that I had didn't have the sleep tracking as potent as the 8 Sleep does. The 8 Sleep does, it gives you your heart rate variability, it gives you your breath rate, all this different stuff. Yeah, it's cool. And it's very accurate. It's spot on. So get more sleep, but also figure out what kind of sleep you need and how you're going to do that. Going to bed at 10 and waking up at 6 isn't all there is to it. No, there's a lot more to the program. And that's why, if you have any questions about sleep, go look at, some of Huberman's podcasts, because he talks about in depth of when to turn the phones off, when to, black out, when to, drop the temperature, that kind of stuff. Little things like that. Do you do any of this? Or do you just go to bed?
Sometimes I take melatonin, Last night I slammed a couple.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. My wife, we're having a baby on Monday. And she awesome. She asked me while we were laying in bed, she was like, so are you going to get up and I said, no, absolutely not. and I don't say that rudely, but I provide for the entire family. I also have 2-3 assistants, a nanny, someone cleaning, and I'm hiring somebody to come live at the house for 8 weeks while the baby's there. Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting up, because to me, and Dave and I are very similar in this, your heart and your brain are directly connected to how well you sleep.
Yeah.
If I'm getting up with a brand new baby, guess what? Everything's going to shit, and I'm not going to be able to run the business and make the money to do all the shit that we're going to be doing anyways.
Right.
Like, and I'm not doing it in a prideful way. Sleep to me is like at the top of my list.
Okay, so let me throw this out there and see if you guys have any ideas. Obviously, you don't know. My wife was had a traumatic neck injury.
Yeah.
Was paralyzed, quadriplegic.
Bro. This is the most incredible story.
And anyway, she's made a lot of progress, but
No, she's walking.
No,
This
she's
happened
walking.
She's riding
3 months
bikes.
ago. The doctor said you're done. You're
She's
not
riding
walking.
bikes.
You're quad. She's walking and riding bikes.
It's crazy.
But involuntary spasms. She'll wake up in the middle of the night, and something that we're battling for her right now is her sleep. She'll wake up with her knees in her chest and she can't move. So I have to wake up. I put my hand on her chest and I put my other hand on her legs, and I have to stretch them out, and her body will violently fight me for like,
Wow.
I don't know, probably 20 seconds, and then it'll relax, and then we go back to sleep. But that happens sometimes like 15 to 20 times a night.
Whoa.
So neither of us sleep good.
Right.
What I would do is start experimenting with different supplements and different things.
You're talking about weed, huh?
That's one of them.
Yeah.
Give
Yeah,
her some
sure,
weed
getting that
gummies.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, dude,
We're
that
trying
could be
anything.
the solution, man.
Yeah.
Okay, I would also give you, when I was like doing really big bodybuilding and I was still getting decent 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, I would also take a nap, and I would schedule my entire day, because I knew that I needed, and dude, I'm not talking about like a 4-hour nap. I'm talking about a 45-minuter where I shut everything off and I go, I just need this, because then how productive I am from 4 o'clock to 9 is tripled because I just got a nap in. And so for you, dude, you're not going to be able to go, hey, good luck with everything, I'm going to sleep in the other room, it's not going to work.
Can't do
but
that.
what you can do is, because this is so important, and truthfully, like, your mental health right now is going to be affected by how much sleep you have. What you can do is go, you know what, I do need to shut down for 45 minutes every day and just take a nap with nobody here, and structure your entire day around it. Because again, I'm telling you right now, because I love that this is what you said, sleep is my top. And if I don't get it, I am garbage.
Yep.
I can't think, I can't talk, everything hurts. Like, sleep is a huge thing. So I think for you, like, it's like, you're not going to be able to say, hey, Heidi,
Non-guilty nap.
good luck. Yeah, good luck sleeping by yourself. No. I think you go, you know what, dude? I think I put in 45 minutes every day to nap because I need to get some sleep.
We bought a hot tub.
Nice.
Because we've heard that it will help her relax. So we're going to try sitting in the hot tub every night to hopefully.
Well, dude, there's all
help with
sorts
that,
of supplements out there. I'll send you a list too of just different things that can help with circulation and to help with relaxing the muscles. So there's inflammation is a big thing that Heidi's going to be dealing with right now, because from the injury and from just being stuck, the joints are going to get inflamed. They're going to get.
I mean, this is a whole other long-term thing, but man, supplement thing, like she takes so many pills and supplements, and it's hard to, like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was
story for another day.
I was in the same boat where I was taking, dude, when I was real experimenting with supplements, I was taking, it was like 50 pills a day of different stuff, because I wanted to see what worked and what didn't.
Yeah.
Come to find out, I was doing it the wrong way. I wasn't even methylating the stuff correctly. So you got to go back to the basics and figure out what your body actually. So there's a little saliva.
I like
test you
the
can
nap
do.
idea though.
Yeah, there's a saliva test you can do.
Game changer, dude, because you have to do it. And again, I'm not the jackass sitting here with my wife, who's actually here, saying I'm not going to get up and help with the kids. But what I am saying is, if I'm going to continue to be productive and make the money to provide for everybody and hire 50 fucking people to help us, I'm going to get my sleep. It is absolutely the most crucial thing that I could be doing.
That's a great checklist item. Any others that you wanted to add to that list?
Well, the things I was going to cover tonight was sleep, number one, and then two, you do have to just do what I would say is time triage, time management, and sleep. You know, exercise is one of those things I go back and forth on it. You know, I exercise obviously because it's like really good for mental and physical health, and it's really about optimizing the entire fucking thing, because if I'm not fit, my brain doesn't function as well. Right. So those kind of things put together, but just tactically and being present, like journaling is one of the most important things you can do. Journaling, you notice how I
call
said
it
that?
diary.
Changed it.
Diary.
And then you have to look at this and how I started this, and I started this 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, I was looking, and it was actually 9. So I started the company 10 years ago. 9 years, about a year into it, I was like, man, my days are just getting longer and longer. And I feel like I'm getting further and further behind. That's the way it felt. Like I was just like my days were getting longer. I had a fucking thermarest below my desk. I wouldn't even go home. I would just go down, turn the lights off in my office, lay on the fucking thermarest, and I pull the blanket over me, go to sleep for like 4 hours, and then turn the lights back on in my office, go make coffee, and then do it again, right? And it just felt like I couldn't get ahead. And then I started checklists and time triage, looking like, where am I spending my time? Notice I said spending my time, because you have to think about time as currency.
Yeah.
And if I'm investing my time, it has to return a positive ROI. Yeah. You're not going to invest your money and continue to invest your money in negative ROI. You're not going to. You know why? Because you're going to go fucking bankrupt. You're going to learn a big lesson. And
you're going to start over again.
Yeah. But the one thing that people think they have an infinite amount is time, because they're living in the present and they're saying, I'm going to generate more tomorrow. I'm going to generate more tomorrow. It's like you wake up every day as an investor and you have a brand new tank of money.
Yeah.
And you're a failed investor because you've continued to spend your time in negative ROI, and you're not going back and looking at your investments and treating your time like a fucking investment.
86,000 seconds a day.
That's right. And if you're not going through there and chopping that stuff out and being maniacal about checklists and your time and saying, I've got to just cut out the white noise, the stuff that's negative ROI, you're just not doing it right. And some of us do it subconsciously. We do it subconsciously, and we do it without knowing, but a lot of people, I think they need a manual visual process that they're like chop, 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 chop. And then you start doing that in every piece of their life. It translates to everything, because then you're like, okay, I'm not putting negative fuel in my body.
So is a checklist, it's kind of a to-do list. I view them a little bit differently, because a to-do list is kind of like what are my daily tasks that I got to get done that day. Whereas a checklist is, these are the non-negotiables, the things that I have to do every single day. So you're actually probably the first guest who's ever given me a checklist item that I both A, am not currently doing, and B, don't want to do, which is journaling, because it is so hard for me.
Diarying.
My brain goes faster than my pen, and so when I start writing, I'll write a sentence that is complete, and then I'll go back and read it. And I skipped over like
that's why your
my brain is jumping ahead. Yeah, dude, all the time.
I'm like, what is he saying?
But I'm going to add it to my list, because I know the times that I have done it in my life, it's the same reason I enjoy doing the podcast. If I wasn't sitting here tonight having this conversation with you guys, I would probably be at home, maybe watching TV, doing something, hanging out with the family. I would not be exercising this big muscle in my head, the brain. And so it's the same concept of you're writing things out.
So can I give, this will be fast so that those listening can go back and listen. You have 168 hours in a week. After 8 hours, you have 112 hours in a week. After 40 to 50 hours of work, because we put that up there, you're about 60 hours, 70 hours left. If you're doing what he's talking about, you should be going through in your life and dissecting those 40 to 60 hours.
Yeah.
Because you can't give up sleep. You're not going to give up your job, right? Or whatever it is you're doing. So you're down to about 60, 70 hours. So you should go through with your checklist and go, all right, 40 to 60 hours of my week, what am I investing my time into, and what should I cut the fuck out so that I can do more of what I'm good at, or what gives me an ROI?
I like that. I'm going to start with kind of a weekly time budget.
Yeah, I love this.
Myself.
I love it. And the other thing too is I always tell people, I break this down. That's why I know these numbers well. 168 hours a week. After 8 hours, you're at 112. How many hours do you work? And people always say 40 to 50. I'm like, listen, dude, I work my ass off, and I maybe work 60 hours a week. Right. Maybe.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's 60. Okay, 112 minus 60. Like, dude, you still have 50, 60 hours a week that you're doing what with? Right. And that's what you should be doing that list with that you're talking about. Is like, okay, oh shit, I'm reading, or I'm drawing, or I'm journaling, or I'm watching TV. Oh shit, dude, I just realized I'm doing 3 hours a day. That's 21 hours a week.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And most people are like, 2 or 3 hours of TV, that's not that much. That's 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's 100 hours a month.
That is your business. That is like what people say is their side hustle, right? That's your business right there. If you're putting 25, 30 hours a week,
so much,
dude, it is so much. And it's changed my life in so many different ways. I can't be overwhelmingly more positive about this, because what it does is it also takes like the 2 or 3 hours that I have with my kids. It also puts 2 to 3 hours where I'm like, oh, now I've got to make these minutes and seconds count in here. You know, today I came home, I flew back, I landed at 4:30. I got home at 5. My daughter went to piano, so I had the youngest with me, and we spent from 5 to 6 playing, not watching TV or doing anything, because I haven't seen her for a few days. Like, I got to connect, and you got to break down the barriers. You got to reconnect with them, because we all have kids here. It takes a minute. You got to like warm up the machine. So then it's like how I warm up the machine with the kids is as I play the game. Would you rather? Would you rather be an elephant or a giraffe? Would you rather be this? Would you rather? And I just get them talking. Just get them break down the barriers, get them talking. And then I start talking to her. I'm like, hey, so what kind of stuff are you into at school? You know, because if you just hard open with that, it never works. So I got to break down the barriers. I got to warm them up. I got to get them saying yes. You know what I mean? I got to get them involved, get them engaged. And then I can like reconnect and communicate with them, because they're the best at small talk. They're the best at shutting you down, like basically creating the wall and creating the fucking small talk. We're like, school's good. And then just like moving out or whatever, right? You got to warm up, get them saying yes. And then reconnect in. And then we were talking about art, we were talking about dance, we're just talking. And 1 hour, dude, I had 1 hour to just like break down the walls, get her saying yes, reconnect, and then like on the road.
But when I'm thinking of this, because I always run this timeline, I always do time management in my brain. Now I'm thinking, so for 30 hours a month, you're spending time talking to your children.
Yes.
And most people are like, oh shit, even people listening are like, oh shit, I don't know if I talk to my children for 1 hour a day. I'm not talking to them for 30 hours a month. Like, that's not happening.
No. And I'm a huge analog believer. Like I have a lot of like puzzles, like, you know, puzzles and pencils and pens and markers and shit. So I do everything with them. Like if they're drawing, I'm drawing. If they're doing something. So it's, you know, we're off topic a little bit on kids, but that's like, I'm looking at my time and what I'm investing and how I'm spending that time with my kids. And then I'm also saying, okay, what's the most positive and productive I can be directly plugged in with them versus flushing this hour down the toilet with here, like I'm going to go up to my office and bang out a bunch of emails that, by the way, I can get to at 5 o'clock in the morning either way. Yeah, dude.
I like that a lot. Those are really good ones. And those are, I like it when we get checklist items that are kind of relevant to everybody. Yeah. If you got a heart and a brain,
you should be sleeping.
You should be sleeping. You should be paying attention to this stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that list?
I think for this one, that's good.
I was going to say that actually.
That's good.
I think you nailed it, man.
How many times have you been on
string on me? 3 times.
Now I know why.
3 times.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Like,
you get some people who go on a show like that and they tell their story and it's like, that was a cool story, and then that was their story. There's a lot more to you than just a story. You've got some solid insight and advice.
He has a diary.
That's a diary.
I have a diary. It's got a little golden key. I wear it. You know,
I'm getting you a diary for Christmas.
He has a ring around his.
It's cool. I don't like to brag about it.
One of those pens that's got 9 different colors.
You click on it. You open it up and every day is a different color. You're like, this guy's legit.
This guy's legit. It's got a little princess on the top.
I think it's important that we also diary things that we fail at.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Those are huge.
It's kind of, I remember when I was keeping a journal kind of consistently, I would always be so embarrassed to write anything like vulnerable or like
you were worried somebody would come read it.
I was either worried that somebody would come read it, or I was just embarrassed myself. Like writing it down makes it real.
Get the lock.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's why you wear it on a necklace.
They can't get in that thing.
No.
Yeah.
Dude, Evan, those are some really good. That's those 2 or 3 items that you just shared with us are probably the core. I mean, I'm not going to say probably. Those are the reason why you've been able to build a company as successful as you have. Building Black Rifle. Take all those, throw in some, really hard work and a splash of good luck.
Like, there you go. Like, I can't emphasize the amount of luck that has participated in this. The other thing is, it's like, connecting in with people authentically and just creating relationships. People look at fucking relationships like transactions. Everything's transactional. What can this person do for me? What can this person, versus just saying, hey, I want to have a connected, authentic relationship. Is this good? Is this person good? Are they a good human? Are they a good human? Do they live their fucking life like I do? Awesome. You know what?
Make the transaction energy based.
Yeah. It's energy based. Yep. It's like, I mean, some of my best friends are people that can do nothing for me in business.
Right.
Like zero. But they're fucking awesome. Like they're fun, they're funny, they're engaging, they're family men. Like I also like, you know, I mean, if you can't tell, like I do not spend a lot of time with people that just they're not family people. Like right, I can't. Like
we're the same.
Like I can't. Like it's too much of a big part of my life if guys are off doing honky, like weird shit. You know, and we all know this because when you reach a certain amount of success, they're the guys that are like dipping their toes down in Vegas and doing a bunch of weird shit. And I'm like, it's not my vibe, man.
Yeah, we don't really even attract those people anymore. When you become the person that or when you're trying to become the person you want to become, that naturally just kind of turns off that frequency of attracting those dudes. That we're gonna get further into this in some future episodes, but the energy thing I'm big on.
You got a good energy too, man.
He's got a great energy. You got a real killer energy.
I live and die by one thing now with my relationships, and it's one word: is it edifying or not?
Yeah.
If when we talk, is it edifying? Like every time Dave and I, one of the reasons we're such good friends, because when we talk, it's always an edifying conversation. Right. Even if it's just a goofy, funny conversation.
Yeah.
And any relationship now I have, whether it's a conversation or just interactions, if it's not edifying, done. Cut.
Here's what I love about energy. You can hear me right now, right? You can hear me through your ears.
Yeah.
Why? How can you hear me? What's causing you to be able to hear me? Frequencies.
Oh, yeah.
Frequencies traveling through the air. It's just a vibration, something in your ears, picking it up, turning it into a message. So if we can do that with our mouths, which is pretty primitive, who's to say we can't do that with our brains? Who's to say that we can't do that with our thoughts, our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, everything like that? And the most powerful thing I've ever done is be able to focus on that, whatever it was that I wanted, put my energy all in that direction, but then internalize it and feel. So good example is when I wanted to own a helicopter before I had the money to own a helicopter, I used to drive around in my truck with one hand on the steering wheel like it was the Cyclic and another hand down here on my fake Collective, and I would actually feel the emotion. Like this is the key part. Feeling the way that I wanted to, that I knew I would feel the day I got my helicopter and I was flying my family around. So I'm this 21, 22-year-old kid driving around in my truck, owning my construction job, pretending like I'm flying a helicopter. And I come from a family and a background in a situation where I should not have two helicopters sitting behind me that I own. I shouldn't, but I do. And the reason for that, one, I'm going to give almost all the credit to just me being able to focus on it and then actually feel what it felt like before I was able to achieve it. Right. Probably the same feeling that you had when you were going public with, the company. You built up, you knew exactly what you're trying to accomplish out of it.
You probably had years before that thinking about when you would go public and what it would feel like.
Years.
Yeah. And you created it all in your head. You created this world. And then, it sucks that manifesting has become such a cliche
bullshit, but it's so true.
Because it's just been adopted by a bunch of fucking dorks.
Yeah.
And I'll say one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. And, was we went to the New York Stock Exchange, which is so historically significant for so many different reasons. There was no other option. I don't give a shit about the NASDAQ. So the New York Stock Exchange is right across the street from where George Washington took the oath of office. And when we stepped up on the podium to ring the bell, my daughter pressed the button.
Wow. So cool.
So when she's in college and some socialist professor is like saying like, oh, Marxism or whatever, she's like, well, I ran the bell in the New York Stock Exchange. Like, yeah, hell yeah.
That's cool.
It was, and I think I'm the only guy to say in the New York Stock Exchange as I'm giving my public speech. And so it's kind of a redneck moment. They're like, wow, okay, this guy's kind of like the president. The president of the stock exchange is like, that's legit. Okay. Hey, man.
Dude, that's the whole reason why you went public is, like I said earlier, in order for you to be able to get a seat at that table and one of those microphones that those big corporations have, you had to go public. So it was a necessary evil, and it's done wonders, dude. I mean, obviously it's been a rocky road, and you guys have had your fair share of just blindsided attacks and bullshit. Yeah. They've tried to cancel you. It's how many times they've once, twice?
They come at us a few times. Like I took a lot of heat for so many different things, right? A couple of them over the years, but I think, you know, when you're committed, you know, I mean, it goes back to virtue and courage, right? It's like, hey, this doesn't scare me, dude. Right. Like, you know, course of action and development, risk mitigation. When I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, my kids love me. Yeah. My wife loves me. Like, I got amazing friends, beautiful people around me, surrounding me every day. Like, the white noise of the bullshit, it can't really penetrate. You know why? Because, dude, I get to go home every day, and I got two little rock stars and a fucking rad wife that's like, they think I'm the coolest dude in the world, and I think they're the coolest people in the world. And that's the one thing, like, the ultimate equalizer and the greatest fucking thing that I have, like, period, and it's not my possession, it's one that they're giving me, like, openly. It's like, that's the most beautiful thing that I've had. Yeah. And so it's like, it's fucking really meaningful. It's very powerful. And that's the thing, is like, become uncancelable, because if you don't give a shit what Twitter has to say, dude, it is a power. It is like, it's a power.
It's amazing what you can do when you have a firm grasp on yourself.
Yeah.
And who you are, and truly believe. And not just believe a set of core guidelines and principles, but also live them. Once you start living them, then you start believing that you believe in your own stories.
Yeah. People feel authenticity too, man. And you just like exude that. And I've never drank a cup of coffee.
Really?
Never have. But I promise you, if I do, it'll be Black Rifle coffee. I like you as a dude.
You guys are like, this is fucking awesome, man. Like, I don't even feel obligated to say this. Like, this is awesome. You guys have a great table here. Like, this is awesome conversation. Like,
thank you.
The energy is vice versa in the context of, this has been a rad conversation. You guys are good people. I can feel it. You guys are good humans, man. Like, that's awesome.
We appreciate that. I mean, that's honestly, dude, you think about it, the timing, this is just one example. We've been trying to link up for years. Right? So many different opportunities, so many different things. We started the podcast, and we just so happen to be spending the day with you in Moab, and it's when you work towards a goal, a lot of the pieces just fall into place. Yeah. And it wasn't any effort whatsoever to get you to come on the show, because it's just a natural fit and it was good for you. And this, you're a guest that a lot of podcasts that, would kill to have, because you're a great podcaster and you've been on a lot of shows. You're somebody that people would want to be able to interview. And I agree with what you're saying, where if you're a good person, you do. I mean, these are so basic principles, but man, I cannot overemphasize. If you're a good person, if you spend some time getting to know who you really are, what your weaknesses and strengths are, especially your weaknesses, figure out what those are, because some of those you can turn into strengths, and some of them you can just
forget,
move on, and never look back. Exactly.
Never look back.
They don't have to have the power over us that we sometimes allow them to do. So to recap, I'll give you guys the checklist. I've got my checklist item that I was putting out was create that list, 2 lists. One is going to be of the toxic versus positive energy people in your life. Just make a column. Does this person give me good energy, bad energy? There's probably going to be a third column where it's like, this person's kind of up and down. Yeah. Everybody's got those relationships.
I also like the way he put it, become a sociopath in cutting those people out.
Right.
And if you don't know what a sociopath is, it's somebody who has no feeling once something happens. So,
because a lot of people are afraid because they're afraid of what that other person
is going to say
versus like, that's why they're getting the axe.
I'm fucking that's why they're getting you say.
Exactly. It's like that's why they're getting the axe.
Yeah. No, I love that. And the other paper that I'd like you guys to fill out would be the one where you create 2 columns. One is going to be a list of things that you love to do that give you energy, that get you going, and the other one's going to be stuff that you don't enjoy doing. You're going to go through that list, and you're going to figure out where you can spend more time, and how much of the time that you're spending on the negative line can be transferred over to stuff that's actually building you and making you happy, because it's really not that hard. It's just budgeting. To look at the list and figure out where you're spending your time, which takes me to your checklist item, which is time triage and keeping a cute little diary. It's, I'm gonna colored pens.
I love that. I love that so much.
There's gonna be Black Rifle coffee diaries. I think we're gonna break that into 2 different lists, though. Keep your journal that you're gonna be able to just write in and just kind of let that just be a sounding board for whatever's going through your head. Throw it out there. The other side of that is keeping an actual checklist. I like how you put that, a daily checklist or a list of things. You're going to add new things to that every day that you got to accomplish, but have your core things that you do them. And as you do them, you'll be able to do like I do with my sleep tracking app. I realized that eating candy before bed makes me sleep like shit, so I'm not going to do it anymore because I don't feel good. So once you start putting this stuff out there, getting it in front of you, and you've got a record of it, dude, change is so much easier to make once you know what you need to change.
As soon as you figure out how to measure things, you can change.
Exactly. And then the one I like the most is sleep.
Yeah.
And there's way more to that than just get better sleep or go to bed earlier. This is spend some time learning about sleep, educate yourself. There's a book called which one?
Sleep Well.
So there's one called Why We Sleep.
Oh yeah, Why We Sleep too. That's
Why We
great.
Sleep terrified me because it just shows just how like bad for you not getting good sleep is. Like, it's terrifying.
This is why I worry about Diesel Dave the most, because that guy never sleeps.
I was going to say Rob Bailey.
Yeah, never sleeps.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it'll catch up to you sooner or later.
Absolutely.
So spend some time figuring out what your sleep looks like, how to get better sleep, and
take a nap if you need to.
We will actually probably in a future episode. I'll give you guys a promo code that gives us a pretty healthy discount off the 8 Pod for any of our listeners. I love it. I've had the Ooler. I've tried a bunch of different things. 8 Sleep is by far the best one I've found so far, and I'm not even getting paid to say that. At least not on this show. Well, on YouTube, but they're not tracking this. Dude, Evan, you're the man. We really appreciate you coming up, and that you're a wealth of first of all good energy, just good vibrations. And now I understand why you get to hang around with such cool people, and you can name drop, people just name dropping over here.
Yeah, I know.
But the reason why you're able to do that is not because you're at every freaking Washington party, hobnobbing and trying to be buddies. You're just a good person. People pick up on that, and they want more of it. So I'd love to interview you again. There could be a whole series of Evan's tasty little notes.
Does he make the invite for January 4th?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. The whole Black Rifle. So January 4th to the 8th, we go do our big winter shit show extravaganza up Bear Lake.
Helicopters.
So we got a whole lodge and a whole cabin.
Tracks,
and
we do everything.
Any toy you can imagine is there.
And I'm in. Like anything you guys got going on, man, I'm in. Like consider me like I'm in. Like whatever invite I get, I'm in.
Hell yeah. I'll text you the dates because we'd love to have you up there. Yeah. So yeah, with that said, dude, we appreciate you making the time. We appreciate Dude, you're just a good example of good energy.
Thank you guys.
I love it.
I sincerely, really, really, from the deepness of my fucking soul, I really do appreciate it. Thank you.